Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports for another daily live Formula 1 news video, and going straight into it today, how did Mercedes and Ferrari fall foul of Formula 1's plank rules? Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc's post-race disqualification at the US Grand Prix was the first time in years that cars have fallen foul of Formula 1's plank rules. In fact, there have been remarkably few times in Formula 1's history that planks have been found to have worn down too much, with the most famous still being Michael Schumacher's disqualification from the '94 Belgian Grand Prix. This makes it even more intriguing that in an area of the car that teams are very mindful of, This makes it even more intriguing that in an area of the car that teams are very mindful of, there being no room for error, two of the top squads tripped up on the same race weekend. The explanations of how the rule breaches happened seem to be clear, which is why both teams had to simply accept their fate with the stewards. As Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff said, there's no wiggle room in the rules. We need to take it on the chin, do the learning, and come back stronger. The tolerance between success and failure over plank legality is tiny, given that there can be no more than 1 millimeter of wear between a freshly fitted plank and one that's gone through all the rigors of a race. To check compliance within the rules, the FIA is able to measure wear on the plank at 4 50mm diameter holes drilled into the surface at specific locations designated within the regulations. In the instance of Leclerc and Hamilton, it was the rearmost hole that failed their tests. This hole must be positioned at the car's centerline between 825mm and 1025mm ahead of the rear axle line. As can be seen from the main image, this in itself offers some variability as to how wear can occur on different cars, given that there is no specific point for the draw hole, unlike the 3 holes at the front of the plank. The draw holes made in the plank are surrounded by flush-mounted titanium skid plates. These offer further protection from wear and are also tightly regulated in their design. This is an area that the FIA has been closely monitoring with the new generation of cars, and it has served several technical directives as a response to inconsistencies in their design already. One interesting discussion point after disqualifications was that the FIA did not check the planks of all the other cars on the grid. This is standard procedure though, as it would be impossible for the governing body to check compliance of every aspect of every car. It is why it selects random elements every time from random cars at the bid to check compliance throughout the grid. On this occasion, Max Verstappen's RB19, Charles Leclerc's FF23, and Lewis Hamilton's W14, alongside Lando Norris's MCL60, were all chosen to have their planks checked. The Red Bull and McLaren were given the all clear, whereas the Ferrari and Mercedes were not. The technical reason for why their planks were worn down too much is simple to explain. Their cars were running too low to the ground throughout the race on the Grand Prix race weekend. The cause of this revolves around the choice of ride height, something that teams play around over each weekend. But it can also be influenced by fuel loads and even DRS use, as the aero load comes on and off the car. Teams normally have plenty of time on a Grand Prix race weekend to get their ride height into their sweet spot. But the car is low enough. Teams normally have plenty of time on a Grand Prix weekend to get their ride height into a sweet spot where the plank is not in danger of being worn away, but the car is low enough to deliver maximum performance. However, this balance has proved harder to manage at sprint races, with teams just having one practice session to get their car dialed in for the entire race weekend. As a consequence of the more condensed timetable, there is an inability to cover the qualifying and long-run programs that are regularly done. Any ride height calculations made during this FP1 session must account for the additional competitive running that is added into the weekend schedule, as there are extra competitive sessions taking place once the cars are locked in. Furthermore, teams are not able to change the plank as freely as they normally are once the cars are in parc fermé, so there is a certain element of guesswork going on. We have already seen times this year, like with Alpine and Baku, where teams have realised after the sprint that the ride heights were too low, and that there was a risk of the plank being worn too much in the main race. Cars have then been pulled out of parc fermé to make the ride height changes and started from the pit lane. Ferrari revealed after the race that it had spent time during its FP1 racing the ride height of its cars, in order to find an optimum range for the race weekend, once it became clear how bumpy the track was. But it clearly did not raise the ride height enough. Intriguingly, it also suggested that the weather may have played a factor in how things played out. A stronger wind intensity that was originally forecast along with the change in direction perhaps meant that the car was being forced down further in areas of the track that it had in practice, pushing the plank on the ground. The situation though at Austin was also made more complicated by the bumpy nature of the circuit, which was described by Verstappen as not being up to Formula 1 standards. Another potential factor would also be related to the tyres, as it may not be a coincidence that two cars that fell foul of the plank issues were also those that ran extended opening stints. We know that as the tyres wear, there's less tread left, which not only reduces grip, but means that the temperature is also able to escape. This can result in lower pressures as tyres get towards the end of their life, and that has the consequence of a lower ride height. In both Hamilton and Leclerc's case, they ran longer first stints on the medium tyre in order to create a strategic offset to Verstappen and Norris, with Leclerc opting to make a one-stop strategy work against his rivals on two stoppers. This could have opened the door for an extra plank wear in this period of the race, when the car was still quite heavy on fuel. All these above elements came together to push the Mercedes and the Ferrari outside of the tolerated window. As Mercedes trackside engineer director Andrew Chauvelin explained, unfortunately it is one of the pitfalls of the sprint format, where we have a solitary hour of running before Parc Fermé. Without running at a full race fuel load in FP1, combined with the circuit as bumpy as this in parts of the track where the drivers have to put the car during the bumpy Grand Prix, have contributed to the higher than expected wear levels. We will go away from this weekend and learn from this though. It will be very interesting to see if at bumpy sprint venues, with Interlagos coming up, teams will now change their programs in FP1 to ensure that they get at least one run on heavy fuel to better understand their ride height implications for the Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly very interesting to see what happened to Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton this Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly wasn't what we were expecting. It was certainly quite late after the Grand Prix. I think I'd already gone to bed, and then they announced the fact that Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were eliminated from the Grand Prix. Certainly a big shock, but the rules are rules, as Toto Wolff has gone on and said, and unfortunately those two drivers were disqualified from the race. And unfortunately Lewis Hamilton went on to lose a podium position, which of course we're very upset about, because he was doing quite well in the race on Sunday. As we move on to an article speaking about how Mercedes I had another one here. How Mercedes moved closer to Red Bull with their new floor upgrades. Mercedes have struggled in 2023 ever since the rule... Mercedes have struggled in Formula 1 ever since the rule and regulation changes that were introduced in 2022. However, things seem to be going in the right direction at the US Grand Prix, where Lewis Hamilton managed to get the edge over both Ferrari and McLaren before being disqualified together with Leclerc for excessive wear on the skid plank. For Mercedes though, this disqualification is irrelevant in the long run because Lewis Hamilton has been able to close the gap on Max Verstappen. Despite the sprint weekend, which means that the teams have only an hour to test the car, Mercedes brought a completely new floor. The new solution was characterized by new Venturi inlets, a revised floor edge, and also a different shape of the floor around the lower impact structure, which is allocated inside the floor of the car. It is possible to see all the changes highlighted with the blue arrows. The Venturi inlet has an entirely new shape compared to the previous version, with the distance between the floor edge and the two inside elements have been increased. This change was made to increase the amount of air being pushed underneath the car, and thus converted into downforce. This improves the car's behavior, especially in the high-speed corners. The floor edge has the same shape as the previous one though, but the race section has been inclined further, and the two vortex generators at its exit have changed too, with a more square space to better manage the incoming turbulence from the front tyres. This makes the flow underneath as undisturbed as possible, intending to generate a low pressure area. All these changes aim to increase the downforce generated under the car and increase the W14's rear stability in low speed corners. The floor also allowed the car to run at lower ride heights. The effects of this new package were visible and were very quick on the new Mercedes upgrades. The car has been very fast, especially with These effects of the new package were visibly very quick, and the car has been very fast, especially in the first sector, allowing Hamilton not only to fight for pole on both Friday and Saturday, but also to challenge Verstappen on the Sunday. The British driver, in fact, expressed his good impressions and praised the team's effort after the Friday qualifying, going on to say, I think it'll just be a showing of resilience and strength and depth from our team. I think we had a difficult year last year. Even to the start of this year, we didn't expect to be where we are. Things on the other side of the garage were quite different though, with George Russell, who struggled to find pace all weekend, finishing only P5 after Hamilton and Leclerc's disqualifications. Ferrari and McLaren both made similar choices for what concerned to be setup. In fact, the teams decided to use a medium downforce rear wing, which could have helped during qualifying since it proves higher top speeds and a good balance over one lap, but cost them in the race as the rear tires suffered a lot. Despite the same choice, the MCL60 was still good in the race and in qualifying. It was a stable car in both high speed and in the slow speed hairpins, whereas the SF23 looked good in qualifying, but as they added more fuel, the car struggled a lot in making the tyres last. However, while Norris managed to bring the race home in P2 eventually, and Sainz got P3 for the Maranello team, Leclerc tried a one-stop race, which caused his decline down to P5. You certainly had to wonder what the Ferraris were doing on that race weekend, putting Leclerc out on a one-stop strategy. Really, I think they really did compromise his race by sending him out on a one-stop strategy, and unfortunately, he didn't have the degradation that they were hoping for. He wasn't necessarily being able to keep up with the drivers ahead of him. They were being able to overtake him. And then when he did come into the pits eventually, it was a little bit too late for him, unfortunately. But going back to Lewis Hamilton, he had a better race weekend. He was able to challenge for some of those top positions throughout the entire Grand Prix race weekend. Disappointing that he was disqualified for that floor being under the regulated amount that is tolerated. But at least we know that the Mercedes are slowly being able to improve on their pace, and hopefully next weekend out in Mexico, or rather this weekend out in Mexico, we should see a resurgent Mercedes, and I'm sure we will see a relatively hungry McLaren and a relatively hungry Lewis Hamilton to get on that podium position and to get another win in Formula 1. Moving over to another article saying the unknown legality of other Formula 1 cars in the US Grand Prix exposes an awkward reality. The disqualifications of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc from the US Grand Prix raised an uncomfortable thought: how many other Formula 1 cars were illegal but weren't caught? Hamilton's Mercedes and Leclerc's Ferrari were just 2 of 4 cars that went under a physical flaw and plank inspection check, whereas the others of Max Verstappen's race-winning Red Bull and McLaren's Lando Norris used let me carry on from the beginning again. Hamilton's Mercedes and Leclerc's Ferrari were just 2 of 4 cars to undergo a physical flaw and plank wear inspection check. The others were Max Verstappen's race-winning Red Bull and McLaren's Lando Norris, who went on to finish 3rd. Both passed the checks, compared to Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc, who didn't. But the remaining 16 cars, who knows whether they would have passed? They could all be legal and be illegal, or a mix of the two. The point is that we do not know. We don't know about the second Ferrari that inherited a podium because the disqualification of 2 cars did not mean that their respective sister cars had to be automatically checked as well. There's no guarantee that Carlos Sainz's Ferrari or George Russell's Mercedes would have been found to be illegal, as setups can be slightly different between cars, as different approaches from drivers to curb usage, for example, can mean that all important few tenths of a millimeter difference in plank wear by the end of the Grand Prix could make all that difference. And we don't know whether any of the other cars that scored points in this race broke the plank rules either, or any cars outside the top 10 either. In fact, checking the floor and plank isn't always on the to-do list, at least based on what the FIA discloses. There appears to have been no plank checks carried out at the Qatar or Japan Grand Prix, for example, and none at some other races earlier in the season. The last physical floor and plank wear inspections appear to have been carried out post-race before the US Grand Prix was in Singapore, on Verstappen's Red Bull and Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin. This is presumably because of the risk of plank wear was perceived to be a lot lower at the intervening races. This ties in with the FIA being able to target problem areas when it sees fit. And as the disqualified teams acknowledged in Austin, the nature of the circuit and the sprint race weekend format clearly created the potential for some plank trouble, which makes it likely that the officials specifically wanted to check the leading cars for compliance. But the selective scrutineering process means that there could be other cars further down the grid who have got away with it simply because they were not checked. The FIA has access to a vast amount of data, including last year's new aerodynamic oscillation metric. Maybe this guides the officials onto where to look, but even if so, it's only a clue of where to look. It provides nothing in itself. And that's the point. The FIA has good reason to want to check some of the leading cars, and found that 2 of them were illegal. It is not a grand leap to think of some of the other 16 might have failed the same checks too, so why not be sure? It is important to note that it is, to a degree, just a frustrating reality that we have to accept. While the FIA's post-race scrutineering checks are extensive, they are not, and they cannot, be all-encompassing, nor should they be. Some stuff simply does not merit every part of every car being checked. Short of keeping hold of the cars for days after the race, a degree of discretion has to be applied. For example, every car is weighed for obvious reasons, just like every car has its starting tyres checked. But in Austin, only the Red Bull of Sergio Perez, Lando Norris's McLaren, and the AlphaTauri of Yuki Tsunoda were subjected to a battery of surface aerodynamic components and bodywork tests, just like the floor edges and front and rear wings. There are then much more extensive checks of one car, genuinely picked at random afterwards. Streamlining scrutineering is a necessary practicality, and there's also an argument for not telegraphing to teams what is being checked when and when. Otherwise, someone will eventually try to game the system and take a chance at a race where the technical rule X will not be checked. But many might assume that plank wear, given the implications it has for how low cars can run, falls under the category of should always be assessed, and what happened in Austin may well serve as a new example of how scrutineering will evolve for the future. Certainly it was an interesting Grand Prix race weekend, and we have been speaking a lot about these flaws on these Formula 1 cars, and I will be making an in-depth analysis of what happened in the Austin Grand Prix. But we have to think, do we need more consistent checks from the FIA throughout every race car? Of course it is. Unfortunately, not necessarily possible to do because there are 20 cars and you can't necessarily have every single FIA delegate going onto every single Formula 1 car and having to check it. It is just going to take too long, unfortunately, and they need to move these cars to the next Grand Prix race weekend, which, of course, could come one race after the other, like this weekend, where we're moving straight away to Mexico. I see we have a couple comments there in the comment section. Mark saying hello and saying, cannot believe Hamilton and Leclerc got disqualified. Surely if both got disqualified, every single car should have been checked. Yes, I surely agree with that. As we move on to another Formula 1 technical analysis. Looking at Alonso's car and why the upgrade risk did not reason... as why the upgrades risk was not the reason behind Aston Martin's Grand Prix slump in Austin. The team has suffered a poor weekend with both cars out of the points in the sprint and near the back of the Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso feels, though, that Aston Martin was right to bring its big upgrade to the US Grand Prix, despite the risk of it being a sprint race weekend. When the alternate Formula 1 format is in use, drivers and teams have only a single 60-minute practice session to set their cars up before they enter Parc Fermé. Major setup changes are then banned for the remainder of the weekend, making it important to hit the ground running in the practice session with two-thirds less time available to evaluate new parts, as in a normal Grand Prix race weekend. It is for this reason that some teams do not bring big upgrades to sprint races, as a bad practice can have major ramifications for the rest of the weekend. Aston Martin went on to bring a big package to Austin, but brake issues limited the team's running in the sole practice. With both cars out in Q1 and qualifying, there was a non-score in the sprint for them as well. Despite the upgrade risk, Alonso is sure that this is not the heart of the problems with the AMR23. The frustration was not really increasing in the race because we'd been on the same page the whole weekend, said Alonso. We were uncompetitive in FP1, in qualifying and in the sprint. The car has been in parc ferme since FP1, and maybe we were not optimized in terms of setup. We want to think that with more free practice time, you would have had the time to test many different combinations of setups and different ways of optimizing the new package. It was also a bit risky to bring the upgrades here on the sprint race weekend, as you rely so much on a perfect FP1, with two cars doing different testing between the two. We had a very chaotic FP1, and since then we have been on the back foot, he said. It is not like the previous package, which was fast enough to guarantee places in the top 10. We have been struggling for months, and the whole factory is working flat out the whole factory had been delivering flat out to deliver this package for Austin. You cannot say though at the last moment, okay, we will wait for Mexico, because everyone was working day and night to bring these new parts. The biggest problem that we had though was in FP1 the biggest problem we had was many issues in FP1 that we will need to address. I wish to go on to the Mexican Grand Prix soon, where we will have 3 free practice sessions to test many things on the car and hopefully find more pace and be more competitive. It was unfortunately a painful weekend. Certainly was a very painful weekend for Fernando Alonso, where he didn't have the greatest finish there. I think he even had to retire from the race, if I was not mistaken. Just looking at the standings. That is unfortunately the entire weekend standings. Let me look at the race results here. Fernando Alonso, yes, did DNF, unfortunately, because he was putting up with some, I think, still brake issues on his car. Very disappointing, but at least his teammate Lance Stroll was able to get that Aston Martin a little bit higher up the grid than we would have expected. He got up into P7 at the end of the race with that two-place grid jump because of the disqualifications from Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Yep, disappointing weekend for Aston Martin. Hopefully they'll be able to hit the ground running in Mexico this next weekend out. As we move on to another article speaking about Lando Norris, who has hailed McLaren's progress after a 4th straight podium, but conceded that they did not have enough to win the US Grand Prix. Lando Norris went on to say that McLaren are making great progress, but did not have enough to win this weekend's US Grand Prix, after the Briton came 3rd, later promoted to P2 after Lewis Hamilton's DQ. Lando Norris made a great getaway from 2nd and got ahead of the pole sitter Charles Leclerc to take the lead on the opening lap of the race. He led for the majority of the first half, before eventually race winner Max Verstappen breezed past him. The McLaren driver, though, looked to be hanging on to 3-time world champion Lewis Hamilton, but lost ground as the race wore on, before Lewis Hamilton, on a fresh set of medium tyres, came racing past for 2nd place. Norris, though, was able to hold on to 3rd, his 4th podium in a row now, but was later promoted to 2nd following Hamilton's disqualification. He went on to say, "But I'm happy. It was a good race from my side. We knew our struggles, and we knew what was going to be difficult today. And it was just degradation." But the pace over the first 10 laps of every stint, the pace in the beginning, was very strong. I just couldn't hold on though long enough. We are getting there though. Progress every race weekend. Just some more steps are needed. Norris put up a staunch defence to try and keep Hamilton behind when the two went wheel to wheel late in the affair. When asked about the battle with his compatriot, Norris went on to say, I mean, I had to try right, but I just couldn't do it. I didn't have enough tyres left at the end. You saw how quickly he pulled away. I also had to look after my own race. I did the best that I could. I had to push and look after the tyres, and it was too difficult today. Maybe if it was a cooler track, it would have been more suited to us. But it wasn't. I'm still happy though. The team have done an excellent job. To finish on the podium here was better than we were expecting coming into the race weekend, so I am very happy. His teammate Oscar Piastri had an eventful start to the outing in Austin, as he started 10th but made his way up into 6th after the first lap. However, on his way up the field, he collided with the Alpine of Esteban Ocon at turn 2. Ocon went on to retire a few laps later with terminal damage from the incident, while McLaren called Piastri in not too long after to park after his radiator harmed McLaren MCL60 was unable to finish the Grand Prix. However, speaking after jumping out of the cockpit, the Australian could not confirm what caused the issue. I just went round the outside, said Piastri as he explained what happened at the start. I don't know if Ocon was had a bit of a moment on the bump or whatever, but just a bit of a contact on the exit, and I think it must have broken one of the radiators, or maybe it was just an isolated issue. I'm not sure, but something on the right side of the car broke. After scoring 2 consecutive podiums in Japan and Qatar, as well as a sprint race victory in Lusail, Piastri endured a difficult weekend, as he failed to score a point across the sprint and the race. Reflecting on the weekend as a whole, he went on to say, "Definitely not one of my best weekends. I think the sprint was clearly not very strong. I think today, though, was looking a fair bit better. But some things to try and work and improve. I think I was improving throughout the race weekend. I think that I think around here it is also very tricky to get it all together. So, character building weekend, but these are the things and the kind of weekends that are very important in my first season. So definitely we will try and learn what I can." Great to see though that the McLarens are being able to challenge consistently for the top of the grid. We've certainly hoped that they will be able to hit the ground running again next season and be able to challenge from the first race on to the end of the season. It is going to become a major battle of the upgrades next season. We're going to have to wait and see who is going to start the season on the top foot, and then we're going to have to see who is going to be able to continuously keep up consistently in terms of the development for next year. Looking at our poll that was put up here before the beginning of this live stream, I went on to ask who was your standout driver from the US Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton with 62%, Max Verstappen with 25%, Albon with no percent, and other with 12%. Do be sure to let us know in the comment section if you did vote for other. As we move on to our final article here today, Verstappen went on to send a message to the booing fans after a hostile podium welcome. The Dutchman was met with a chorus of boos after securing the US Grand Prix victory. Max Verstappen has welcomed the hostile reception though from fans at the Circuit of the Americas after his victory in the US Grand Prix. The Dutchman secured his 50th Formula 1 race win by holding off a late charge from Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton in what was a thrilling strategic battle in Austin. Verstappen, whose dominance over the rest of the field has meant that his driver's title was wrapped up at the previous race in Qatar, was met with boos while completing his Parc Fermé interview with 2009 champion Jenson Button. Speculation on social media has suggested that some of the booing was directed towards Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, though. The persistence throughout the time in which Verstappen made his way from the car to podium demonstrated vitriol was directed towards him. Hamilton, in contrast, was cheered throughout the race weekend, and with 2021 rivalry between the two creating a partisan atmosphere at the various races since that season, both drivers have been targeted in the past. Another factor of Verstappen at COTA was the large presence of a Mexican fan base, turning out in support of his teammate Sergio Perez. With their relationship having been fractured over the season, you have to think that that could be a contributing factor. Max Verstappen went on to say though, and ask if he was annoyed, he went on to say, no. In the end, I'm the one that takes the silverware home, so it is all fine by me. Formula 1 moves on to the Mexican Grand Prix this weekend, with a similar situation likely to arise. If you expected a more hostile reception at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, Verstappen insisted that it is still me who will be bringing home the silverware. So Verstappen's still confident that despite all the boos from the Formula 1 fans, he still thinks that he does not care, and he is all too happy to be taking home all that silverware from these race weekends. Certainly, you have to think Max Verstappen doesn't really care. He is in the absolute peak of his Formula 1 career at the moment, and is doing phenomenally right now in his Formula 1 career. But that is it from me here today on Forever Motorsport. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for voting in the comment section, for voting in that poll, for letting us know all of your opinions on the comment section. Do be sure to check out all of our other stats content on the channel, and do be sure to join me for tomorrow's live video here on the same place at the same time. Hello and welcome to Forever Sports. My name is Reece. I'll be talking to you a little bit today about one of our channel partners, BITDEFENDER. BITDEFENDER is a global leader in cyber security. BITDEFENDER is committed to defending people all around the globe against cyber attacks, as well as to transform people's digital experiences. In the next 6 months, Forever Sports will be covering major tournaments such as the Rugby Championship, the Premier League, the remainder of the Formula 1 season, as well as embarking on the biggest Rugby World Cup YouTube campaign ever. To ensure that these are all a success, it is imperative that the Forever Sports channels and platforms remain uncompromised. And with BITDEFENDER, we can be assured that our cybersecurity needs are being taken care of. To read more on BITDEFENDER, please be sure to check the links in the description of our video. Once again, thank you very much to our partner, BITDEFENDER, for joining the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Sports. Thank you very much. How did Mercedes and Ferrari fall foul of Formula 1's plank rules? Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc's post-race disqualification at the US Grand Prix was the first time in years that cars have fallen foul of Formula 1's plank rules. In fact, there have been remarkably few times in Formula 1's history that planks have been found to have worn down too much, with the most famous still being Michael Schumacher's disqualification from the '94 Belgian Grand Prix. This makes it even more intriguing that in an area of the car that teams are very mindful of, there being no room for error, two of the top squads tripped up on the same race weekend. The explanations of how the rule breaches happened seem to be clear, which is why both teams had to simply accept their fate with the stewards. As Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff said, there's no wiggle room in the rules. We need to take it on the chin, do the learning, and come back stronger. The tolerance between success and failure over plank legality is tiny, given that there can be no more than 1 millimeter of wear between a freshly fitted plank and one that's gone through all the rigors of a race. To check compliance within the rules, the FIA is able to measure wear on the plank at 4 50mm diameter holes drilled into the surface at specific locations designated within the regulations. In the instance of Leclerc and Hamilton, it was the rearmost hole that failed their tests. This is an area that the FIA has been closely monitoring with the new generation of cars, and it has served several technical directives as a response to inconsistencies in their design already. One interesting discussion point after disqualifications was that the FIA did not check the planks of all the other cars on the grid. This is standard procedure though, as it would be impossible for the governing body to check compliance of every aspect of every car. It is why it selects random elements every time from random cars in the bid to check compliance throughout the grid. On this occasion, Max Verstappen's RB19, Charles Leclerc's FF23, and Lewis Hamilton's W14, alongside Lando Norris's MCL60, were all chosen to have their planks checked. The Red Bull and McLaren were given the all clear, whereas the Ferrari and Mercedes were not. The technical reason for why their planks were worn down too much is simple to explain. Their cars were running too low to the ground throughout the Grand Prix race weekend. The cause of this revolves around the choice of ride height, something that teams play around over each weekend. But it can also be influenced by fuel loads and even DRS use, as the aero load comes on and off the car. Teams normally have plenty of time in a Grand Prix weekend to get their ride height into a sweet spot where the plank is not in danger of being worn away, but the car is low enough to deliver maximum performance. However, this balance has proved harder to manage at sprint races, with teams just having one practice session to get their car dialed in for the entire race weekend. As a consequence of the more condensed timetable, there is an inability to cover the qualifying and long-run programs that are regularly done. Any ride height calculations made during this FP1 session must account for the additional competitive running that is added into the weekend schedule, as there are extra competitive sessions taking place once the cars are locked in. Furthermore, teams are not able to change the plank as freely as they normally are once the cars are in parc ferme, so there is a certain element of guesswork going on. We have already seen times this year, like with Alpine and Baku, where teams have realised after the sprint that the ride heights were too low, and that there was a risk of the plank being worn too much in the main race. Cars have then been pulled out of parc ferme to make the ride height changes and started from the pit lane. Ferrari revealed after the race that it had spent time during its FP1 racing the ride height of its cars, in order to find an optimum range for the race weekend, once it became clear how bumpy the track was. But it clearly did not raise the ride height enough. Intriguingly, it also suggested that the weather may have played a factor in how things played out. A stronger wind intensity that was originally forecast along with the change in direction perhaps meant that the car was being forced down further in areas of the track that it had in practice. pushing the plank on the ground. The situation though at Austin was also made more complicated by the bumpy nature of the circuit, which was described by Verstappen as not being up to Formula 1 standards. Another potential factor would also be related to the tyres, as it may not be a coincidence that 2 cars that fell foul of the plank issues were also those that ran extended opening stints. We know that as the tyres wear, there's less tread left, which not only reduces grip, but means that the temperature is also able to escape. This can result in lower pressures as tyres get towards the end of their life, and that has the consequence of a lower ride height. In both Hamilton and Leclerc's case, they ran longer first stints on the medium tyre in order to create a strategic offset to Verstappen and Norris, with Leclerc opting to make a one-stop strategy work against his rivals on 2 stoppers. This could have opened the door for an extra plank wear in this period of the race, when the car was still quite heavy on fuel. All these above elements came together to push the Mercedes and the Ferrari outside of the tolerated window. As Mercedes trackside engineer director Andrew Chauvelin explained, unfortunately, it is one of the pitfalls of the sprint format, where we have a solitary hour of running before Parc Fermé. Without running at a full race fuel load in FP1, combined with a circuit as bumpy as this in parts of the track where the drivers have to put the car during the bumpy Grand Prix, have contributed to the higher than expected wear levels. We will go away from this weekend and learn from this though. It will be very interesting to see if at bumpy sprint venues, with Interlagos coming up, teams will now change their programs in FP1 to ensure that they get at least one run on heavy fuel to better understand their ride height implications for the Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly very interesting to see what happened to Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton this Grand Prix race weekend. Certainly wasn't what we were expecting. It was quite late after the Grand Prix. I think I'd already gone to bed. And then they announced the fact that Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton were eliminated from the Grand Prix. Yeah, big shock, but the rules are rules, as Toto Wolff has gone on and said. And unfortunately, those 2 drivers were disqualified from the race. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports, here for some breaking news. Huge concerns have been raised in the Andretti negotiations with Formula 1. For several weeks now, speculations have surrounded Andretti and General Motors and their entry into Formula 1. Having passed the necessary checks and requirements imposed by the FIA, talks have now begun with the American entrant and Formula 1 management. Generally speaking, Andretti has faced sustained opposition from the existing teams. For almost 2 years, team principals have questioned whether an 11th team is necessarily in Formula 1. Moreover, the issue of added value is often asked when discussing Andretti's bid. In a sport where politics is so pivotal, the environment towards the American group has been very hostile. There is no set deadline for when Formula 1 must reach a decision on whether to accept or to deny their application, adding further uncertainty to their process. Financial issues are also cited as a significant sticking point. On paper, Formula 1 is in the healthiest it has ever been financially. The budget cap has also seen the likes of Mercedes and Red Bull go from spending $400 million annually to around $150 million. As such, it is inaccurate to suggest that Andretti's entry would jeopardize any existing team. Unfortunately for the US outfit, this doesn't stop teams from complaining about prize money. The reduced slice of prize money teams will receive if Andretti joins is another area teams often cite as an issue. While the current teams have no formal say on what Formula 1 management's final decision will be, their resistance will likely be a key factor in swaying CEO Stefano Domenicali's final opinion on the matter. And critical to the negativity towards Andretti is the fear for some teams that adding an 11th squad to the grid could risk their own future. Williams team principal James Vowles made it clear at the recent Qatar Grand Prix that squads like his were still on the knife edge when it came to finances, so losing prize money and value would not be a good thing. My responsibility is to 900 employees within my company, he said. If you go look at Company's House, you can go look it up for Williams. We've submitted it now, and you can see that we're lossy. Very lossy. In fact, compare it to 21 to 22, you'll see that losses are in the tens of millions. Compare that to 2023, which you won't see, but I'll guarantee you that it is multiples above that. As Red Bull team boss Christian Horner told Sky Formula 1 recently, I think that when you look at how Audi has come into the sport, they've acquired an existing team and an existing franchise. Should it be different for the others? I think that's where Liberty and the FIA need to get together and come to us with a collective position. Because you cannot have one rule for one and another for others. Obviously, money makes the world go round, and that's what every team will be acutely sensitive of, and the franchise value being diluted. Suddenly you go from 10 to 11, so of course the stakeholders, the shareholders of each individual team, will have a concern about that. The key thing for Andretti is whether those concerns are enough to convince Formula 1 management not to give it the deal that it wants. But would Andretti's arrival and the subsequent reshuffling of the commercial rights income really have that much of an impact in making things worse? Especially if it stumps up the $200 million dilution fund payment first. Formula 1's exact prize money split is secret, with its details enshrined in the commercial element of the two Concord agreements. However, using information that is available in the public domain, including the published accounts of both teams and Formula 1 owners Liberty Media, it is possible to ascertain a pretty good idea of how the commercial pot is split up. The best estimation is that, according to the terms of the Concord Agreement, if we judge that the final payment pot is $1 billion, here is how the payments would shift with an 11th team being brought on the grid. If we had 10 teams on the grid with a total fund of $1 billion, the top team would get $140 million with 40%, second place would get 131, third place 122, fourth 113, fifth 104, sixth 95 million, 7th, 87 million, 8th, 78 million, 9th, 69 million, and 10th, $60 million with 6% of that prize pool. Should an 11th team arrive, then the figures would shift slightly, with everyone's percentage of the pot being reduced. This means that those who got a bigger slice of the pie will stand to lose the most. The projection for 11 teams based on $1 billion are as follows. For first place, they would then get 13.3% of that prize pool and get $133 million, down $7 million from $140 million, with only 10 teams on the grid. Second place would then receive $125 million, third 116, fourth 108, fifth 99, sixth 91, seventh 83, eighth 74, ninth 65, 10th 57, and 11th being $49 million. Comparing the two tables, it shows that the arrival of Andretti, if the prize pot does not increase, would trigger a $7 million loss for the Constructors' Champions. The team that finished 5th would lose $5 million, while the team that was placed 10th would go from $60 million to $57 million, a drop of $3 million per year. However, there have been some positive developments for Andretti. Despite the opposition among existing teams, it is ultimately the decision of Formula 1 to accept or deny them. In this sense, the above grievances are not necessarily detrimental to their aspirations. Additionally, there are legal implications of the decision Formula 1 takes. Simply put, Andretti has the option to take legal action if Formula 1 management do not accept their entry for 2025. Of course, this is not an ideal path for any party that is involved. Still, it gives the American team an ace up their sleeve. If the sport wants to avoid the public backlash and scrutiny that a legal case would involve, reaching some kind of compromise should be their priority. New information has emerged though that sheds some light on the dynamics at play between Formula 1 management and Andretti Motors. According to sources, Formula 1 has asked General Motors if they would like to partner with a team other than Andretti. This would be a direct snub from the Formula 1 management to the American team, underscoring their resistance to an 11th team joining the grid. If Formula 1 has indeed asked General Motors to join the field, but with another team, then it cannot be said that Andretti is not adding value to the grid. At this stage, the outcome of negotiations is uncertain, and it is entirely possible an agreement will be reached within the next few months. Andretti is operating under the assumption that they will be in Formula 1, as they have already built a car according to the 2023 speculations, and they are already testing it in their wind tunnel in Germany. Regrettably, however, it seems that Formula 1 is still very resistant to Andretti joining the field, and there is the potential for the saga to become more drawn out and grossly unpopular. Formula 1 must tread carefully though if they are to avoid another bad PR episode for the sport. Certainly very interesting to hear all of these key points that are the sticking points in Andretti's entry into Formula 1. Will they be granted that entry into the sport, or will there be these sticking points that hold it back from moving on to an agreement with Formula 1 management? We certainly hope that it does not go a legal route to get them onto the grid in 2025 or 2026, but if they do not get their bid accepted by Formula 1 management, that may be the only avenue that Andretti does have to get their team onto the grid in 2025 or 2026. Thank you very much for watching me. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Do be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to check out all of our other content on our channel for more Formula 1 news. That has been it for me here on Forever Motorsports. Cheers. Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for this, a helmet review ahead of the Mexican Grand Prix. We have two drivers this race weekend who are bringing new helmets onto the track. That is Sergio Perez and Oliver Bearman. Oliver Bearman making his FP1 debut in Formula 1 this weekend with Haas. But to speak about the home driver first, Sergio Perez will start his home Grand Prix in Mexico with a specially designed helmet. The Red Bull Racing driver has had a helmet designed by a fan in a competition alongside Red Bull. Thousands of designs were sent in after Sergio Perez gave his fans the chance to have their say on how his helmet looked for the Mexican Grand Prix. The 33-year-old driver is racing in his own country and wants to make it a special moment. Out of the thousands of designs submitted, Perez finally chose the design by 22-year-old Mexican Carla Lozano. He went on and said, "When I saw Carla's design, I knew I had to have it on my helmet for Mexico. It is great that the team can connect with fans in the way that we do here and give them the opportunities like this. It was tricky making the decision because the entries were so strong and interesting." Perez let it be noted that Carla's art was the one that brought it all together and showed Mexico in such a perfect way. "There are so many little details and the colors are amazing. I always have Mexico in La Cabeza, but this weekend I will be proudly showing it with this unique helmet. I don't think the pit lane has seen a helmet like this before," he added. Looking at Sergio Perez's helmet for this race weekend, it is really quite exciting. It's got all the really bright and colorful Mexican colors on there and all of the Mexican designs as well. Certainly ties into his home race and it's going to be very noticeable from the cockpit. Of course, perfect for the Mexican fans out there in force, I'm sure, at this Mexican Grand Prix. They're going to be able to see their driver coming from a mile away. But to look at the other driver currently running a helmet design for this race weekend is Oliver Bearman, who will be making his FP1 debut with Haas. He has released a new helmet for himself on Instagram. He says, "New colors for Mexico, so happy with how this came out. Hope you like it as much as I do." It is a pretty standard looking Haas designed helmet in black, white and fluorescent green, with of course all of the Haas designs and Haas sponsors on there as well as the Ferrari Driver Academy logo, because that is who Oliver Bearman does drive for at the moment in Formula 2. He should be making his way into Formula 1 in the next couple of years. But really exciting to see all of these drivers running unique helmets for this upcoming Grand Prix race weekend. Not many drivers running new helmets for this race weekend. Hopefully we'll see a few more before the end of the season that we can do a review for you guys. But certainly really looking forward to seeing that helmet of Sergio Perez's out on track. It's going to be very, very bright and it's not going to be very hard to miss him out there. Do be sure to join us for all of our coverage for this Mexican Grand Prix race weekend, and thank you very much for watching this video. Do be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Cheers.
Hello everybody, Stevie P here from Forever Sports, and I'm here to tell you about BOYLESPORTS, the official betting partner of Forever Sports. Across all of our channels, they are one of the leading betting companies in the world and have recently launched in South Africa with an amazing offering. You can get a 1,000 Rand welcome offer. For the rugby, they are giving you 25% payout boost up to 2,000 Rand on the Springboks winning the World Cup, as well as an extra 50 Rand bet when you stake 250 more on rugby during the Rugby World Cup. It is your one-stop betting shop. That is BOYLESPORTS. Come and join us in the community. Check the links in the description to sign up, get yourself an account, and make sure that you are winning big with BOYLESPORTS.
Hello and welcome to Forever Motorsports for the Mexico Grand Prix preview. I'll be speaking a little bit today about the track characteristics, the weather forecast for this race weekend, as well as who should be competitive around this circuit. The second of the American triple header sees Formula One travel south, where the Mexican Grand Prix will be held in its capital city. The first noteworthy aspect of the Mexican track is its location, which is 2,200 meters above sea level, which makes this event uniquely demanding. Despite the two long straights, we're used to seeing cars with medium and high downforce settings to counteract the thin air. Furthermore, the engines are under great stress. In recent years, certain power units, such as Honda's, have excelled in these conditions though. Others, including Ferrari, have struggled more at high turbo speeds. The track is very power limited. The needs for teams to use high load rear wings means the engines play a bigger role in pushing the cars on the main straights. In this regard, top speeds could be different from what we've seen this year. Formula One's traditional format returns this weekend, giving engineers 3 practice sessions to optimize their car setup for the qualifying and the race. McLaren has finally overtaken Aston Martin in the standings after a long run that began in Austria, while the fight for second place is getting closer and closer, despite the potential shown by the Mercedes W14. As we've seen often since the summer break, McLaren and Mercedes are the main contenders, directly behind Red Bull. Last week, the data analysis showed that Lewis Hamilton was even faster than Max Verstappen. The Mexican Grand Prix will provide answers on how much of Mercedes' performance came from its ground clearance. Mexico also offers a different test for Mercedes and its newly updated W14. According to what was gathered by Formula Uno, Red Bull and McLaren travelled with more conservative setups, precisely to limit wear on the plank. The MCL60 was the usual 2 or 3 tenths slower than the RB19 on race day though. This weekend, however, the intrinsic drag of the Papaya car will be less evident, and this could be an advantage to Norris and Piastri. Ferrari arrives from a less than brilliant weekend in terms of the SF23's performance. They were 4th fastest in Texas and Losail after an excellent spell of races. Barring any major twists in the remaining races, Fred Vasseur's team should maintain 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship. It will be more important though to be able to maximise their performance from their car this weekend. This is something that Ferrari has done well at certain points. Despite struggling to find the consistency of Red Bull, McLaren and Mercedes, the Mexican circuit is rear limited with many slow corners and important straights. All these characteristics suit the Maranello car, but the altitude will also play a role in the choice of setup. In terms of the track layout, 3 sectors divide the circuit quite well. Sector 1 includes the 2 long straights where efficiency with DRS will count. The second sector will start with a very low section and then speeds up in the snake. It is crucial for drivers to use the curbs to optimize lap time correctly. The last sector is the most technical one, with speeds reaching lows of 65 km an hour. Unlike 2022 when the intermediate range of compounds was brought, Pirelli chose to use the softer compounds this weekend of the C3, the C4 and the C5. The grip produced by the asphalt is significantly lower than average. Given that the roughness is among the lowest in the entire calendar, this should, according to Pirelli, favour greater diversity between strategies. Furthermore, on Friday, each driver will be given 2 sets of prototypes of a new C4 compound to use as they wish. Once the data has been analysed, we will decide whether to approve this version for use in 2024, said a Pirelli spokesperson. During the race, graining is a fairly frequent phenomenon on this track. This is partly because the tyres are subjected to greater slipping, as well as because they go over the curbs a lot, which of course cause greater graining. A hurricane heading towards Mexico creates some questions about the weather forecast for the Mexican Grand Prix. But the conditions for the race weekend look relatively pleasant. Dry, sunny and warm, but there is a little bit of wind that drivers may have to manage around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. There's some rain on the forecast overnight from Thursday to Friday, but it should dry up in time for the first free practice session, which starts at 12:30 track time, which it is then predicted to be 21 degrees Celsius. There's an 8% chance of rain during this period, and it is forecast to be partly cloudy. Looking towards the second practice session, it looks like the rain chance increases to about 12%, with the wind speed remaining fairly consistent. The same forecast is predicted on Saturday and Sunday. Perhaps it will be slightly warmer due to the increased amounts of sunshine, but the wind speed is predicted to remain consistent, around 8 to 9 miles an hour. So glad to hear that we shouldn't be interrupted by rain or that hurricane that is around the area in Mexico, but it should provide some great racing without the weather interfering at all this race weekend. This weekend also gives an opportunity for Mercedes and Aston Martin to look at their upgrades that they brought in Austin and get a better understanding of whether they are working to the best of their advantage or whether they can make slight changes for next season to be able to find more gains in terms of their setup. Hopefully this will allow them to get a little bit closer to the top teams of Red Bull and McLaren this race weekend. It should certainly be quite competitive, and we're hoping that we could get a four-way battle for P1 in qualifying on Saturday. We're certainly looking forward to it. Do be sure to join us for all of our coverage here on Forever Motorsports. Thank you very much for watching this video. Do be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel. I've been Reece here on Forever Motorsports. Cheers. Welcome to the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, home of the Mexico City Grand Prix. The inaugural race around the circuit was won by Jim Clark in 1963, while the most successful driver around the circuit has been Max Verstappen, who has gone on to take the winner's trophy home 4 times. The Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is a high-speed street circuit spanning 4.3 kilometers. This tricky street circuit is made up of 17 corners and 3 DRS zones, 2 of them being consecutive DRS straights, which should provide great overtaking opportunities on Sunday. The current lap record around the circuit is 1 minute 18.7 seconds, which was set by Valtteri Bottas in 2018. At over 2,200 meters above sea level, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez has an altitude of over 1,400 meters higher than the second highest Formula 1 track on the calendar, being the Interlagos circuit in Brazil. At higher altitudes, the air becomes thinner, and this reduction in air density makes setting up the cars for the Mexican Grand Prix one of the most unique challenges on the calendar. Dave Robson, the head of vehicle performance at Williams, went on to say that the low pressure means that despite running large rear wings, the drag and downforce of the cars is still low, as well as cooling the power unit and the brakes is also very difficult around the circuit. The turbo also needs to work very hard to keep the internal combustion engine running correctly. As part of a requirement for each team to run a rookie on 2 occasions during the season, Mercedes, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo and Haas will all give track time to promising young talents this weekend. Danish Formula 2 driver Frederik Vesti will make his F1 debut for Mercedes and get a chance to show what he can do in modern machinery, taking over the seat from George Russell. At Alpine, Jack Doohan drove here a year ago and will do so again this time around, while Red Bull Junior driver Isak Hadjar makes his first appearance for AlphaTauri. The Alfa Romeo reserve driver Teo Porcher will be getting a go in Valtteri Bottas' car around the Mexican circuit, and Ollie Behrman is also getting his first taste of an F1 weekend when he goes on to drive for Haas. This Formula 1 circuit provides some of the best viewing experiences for Formula 1 fans, especially in the Foro Sol grandstand, which is set up in an old baseball stadium, where you not only get to experience the thrill of watching an F1 car navigating a tricky technical sector, but you also get to experience the podium celebrations which take place within view of the Mexican fans. Watch now as you get taken around a lap of the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Let us know in the comment section who you are supporting for the Mexico Grand Prix, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We sure hope to see you during our coverage of the Mexico Grand Prix.
Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Motorsports. You're joined by myself, Mark, and by Reece alongside me, and we are here live now for FP1 here at the Mexico Grand Prix. Now, lots of rookie drivers are taking to the track today, of course, because every season there is a regulation for all teams to provide a chance for amateur and rookie drivers to get in the seat of Formula One and have a go around. So lots of teams opting for today with regards to that. So we've got lots of these different drivers going. It's fantastic to see, of course. And yeah, so we've got just about 7 minutes, I think, left to go until the session gets going. So what are we looking forward to here, Reece?
Well, I think, of course, as you said, Mark, with all of those rookie drivers coming in today, we've got Teo Porcher, we've got Jack Doohan, we've got Oliver Behrman, we've also got Isak Hadja, and I think I may be missing one other there. Yeah, that name will come to me eventually. But it's going to be an interesting session for all of those drivers, as well as for the rest of the drivers and the teams out here. We are back to a traditional Formula One race weekend with free practice 1, 2, 3, qualifying on the Saturday evening again, and the race, of course, as per usual on the Sunday. This track and this race weekend provides a really tricky challenge for teams and engineers for setting up their cars, because this track is set so high above sea level. It's 2,224 meters above sea level, and that means that the air density is really low. And even though they run really high downforce rear wings, or medium to high downforce rear wings at least, they really still struggle in terms of finding that grip around those tricky corners, and they still are able to have those high downforce rear wings and go really fast down those straights. It means, though, as well, because of the thin air, that the engines work really quite hard. And speaking about engines this race weekend, we expect a couple teams to be taking new ones. We were expecting to see Ferrari take a new set of engines, but we're hearing now that they're not going to. It's going to be interesting to see what happens around the circuit, because we do believe that all of their engines are pretty much spent at this point.
Yeah, indeed. So, you know, these engines are really going to struggle this weekend. High, as you said, it's very high altitude track. So it's generally going to be very tough on the cars themselves as well as the drivers. We know that it's a tricky circuit, but lots of very famous parts of it. A huge crowd has come out here today. And of course, with Sergio Perez being Mexican, there are thousands and thousands of Perez fans here, all rooting for Perez to do well, and all of them not rooting for Max Verstappen. Of course, a little bit of bad blood between the Mexican fans and Max Verstappen.
You say that, but Max Verstappen has come into this race weekend, and he says so far the response he's gotten from the Mexican fans has been nothing but lovely. Red Bull did, though, get him some extra security for this race weekend. He's got bodyguards following him around just in case. I guess you have to be careful in a country where you have had the fans give you death threats. So.
Well, it's exactly that. So we've got Old Man Roo joining us in the comments here. It's 5:20 a.m. in the Oz. Hello again, Mark and Reece. The best coverage on YouTube. Hoping Perez can put a blinder at his home Grand Prix. Well, thank you so much for saying it's the best coverage on YouTube. Very much appreciate the positive comments like that. And yeah, let's see if Perez can do well at his home Grand Prix. He's really struggled to get into a podium for this last half of the season. Really has been almost never on it. So it would be great to see him on the podium here at his home race here in Mexico City. And yeah, let us guys know where you're joining us from as well, as Old Man Roo has already done so for us. And be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And ask us some questions in the comments. Go and participate in that poll right now. Who's going to top FP1? Of course, we've got that poll going right now. Verstappen leading it quite comfortably. But if you think a different driver could top this session, let us know. And which team do you reckon would be best for this weekend? Who do you think is going to be most favoured?
Yes, and do be sure to smash that like button. It does help us get a little bit higher in terms of the search bar. Yeah, just looking over the circuit, it is looking quite hazy. We'd expect it to be quite warm out in Mexico. We've seen the tyre compounds for this race weekend. I think it was the C5, 4, and 3, so the softer of the compounds, as well as, yeah, just looking out now at some of the stats about the circuit.
Yeah, indeed. So this is now round 20. I was about to say, I wanted to say, I just wanted to confirm it. It is round 20
Of course, another one in North America / Americas. Track distance is 4.3 kilometers. Full throttle's only spent at 48.3%. The track lap record is 1 minute 14.
The top speed around the circuit is 356.9 kilometers an hour with 17 turns and an elevation of 2.6 meters. Of course, though, this track is situated really high above sea level, being about 2,224 meters. The tire compounds, I did call it right there, is the C5, the C4, and the C3. There is an extra compound there that Mark is kind of tilting his head for. That is because they're doing prototype tires for this race. Well, not for the race, but they are testing it in these free practice sessions.
Yeah.
And at the moment, the air temperature is 22 degrees Celsius. Track temperature, though, is quite hot, 40 degrees Celsius. And it is extremely humid out there with 51% humidity around Mexico City.
And the worst part is there's not a lot of wind there. So it's high humidity, it's high track temperature. It's not the coldest day either. It's cloudy. It's quite hazy, as Mexico City always is. Lots of pollution, obviously, in the air. And so I think the drivers are going to find it relatively uncomfortable throughout most of this race. We've got Cora joining us here saying, good evening, guys. We've got Percy also saying, joining from Germany. Always looking forward to your streams. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Percy. Great to have you guys here as well. And keep it going, guys. Let us know some questions in the comments if you have for us. Of course, it's going to be a long practice one session. It'll be an hour long. We will have a countdown for that as well, and we'll go and quickly put that up as soon as the practice session starts. We see quite a few different fans, funny enough, in the stands here. We've got lots of Red Bull fans, of course, for Sergio Perez, but I've got a few Ferrari fans and the odd Aston Martin fan and McLaren fan as well, I can see already. So lots of fans have made their way to that old baseball stadium section of the track to go and see all these drivers run around today.
So the name of that sector is called Forosol. If you've watched my track guide, you would have known that. It is one of the best places, I think, in Formula One to watch cars go around. You just get so close to them and you're able to watch them from above and get a bird's eye view of their cockpit, which is certainly incredible. One driver who's not going to need too much from his fans in order to spot him is Sergio Perez. He's running a tribute helmet, or a fan designed helmet rather, and the theme was En la Cabeza, which means Mexico on the mind. So he is running that tribute helmet to Mexico this race weekend, of course, it being his home Grand Prix. Well, looking at some views of the Mercedes, have they brought that looks like some revised side pod inlets on that car.
Yes, indeed. They were talking about it a little bit earlier, so I was noting that. So they have changed the side pod ever so slightly, but we're looking at Frederic Vesti there in the Mercedes. Of course, he is the
Teo Porcher in the Alfa Romeo at the moment, waiting to get out. For those of you just joining now, there are quite a few different rookies joining us this session. We've got 5 different ones. We've got Oliver Behrman, Frederic Vesti. Who else is there? They're not on the board just yet, so I'm trying to see them. Teo Porcher, Jack Doohan, as well as Isaac Hadja. That was the last one.
Indeed, so lots of rookies here, so you're going to see weird names. They will appear weirdly on our timing boards as well, just warning, because they are not usual Formula One drivers. So you're starting to see their names appear there. Yes, they are now in capitals versus the others, as we do now have the start of practice 1.
Yes, certainly looking forward to this, as we do see a little bit more information. Pirelli prototype tyre testing will be carried out throughout free practice today. These test tyres will carry no coloured markings on the sidewalls, so there may be different iterations of different compounds. They're trying to see what they can do for next year, certainly around this track or other tracks with similar characteristics. As that clock does now go out and we see the first few drivers leading out on circuit, we have Fernando Alonso leading the queue right now of a couple drivers out there.
Indeed, we've got Pure Blood in the comments joining us saying, let's go F1 crew, as this is his usual message when joining the stream. So great to have you back here, Pure Blood. Brandon joining us from England whilst playing F1 2023.
That is certainly one of my favourite ways to watch a Formula One session.
We've got Percy asking us questions here saying, which of the F3 drivers are you guys rooting for?
I think Oliver Behrman is one that I've been following for a little bit. He's still very young, and to already have gotten an opportunity to get into a Formula One seat is certainly quite commendable for himself. So the Ferrari Drivers Academy certainly putting a lot of trust in him, putting him in that Haas car this weekend. As we do see, I think this is, yes, Isaac Hadja going out in the AlphaTauri at the moment on those prototype tyres.
Exactly that. So, John also joining us from South Africa, Cape Town in South Africa, that is, as we've just crossed 100 viewers. Guys, let's be sure to smash that like button and let's try and get up to 200 as quickly as possible. As we see, Fernando Alonso pretty much leads everybody out with all of that stuff in the back there to do some testing for aerodynamics. He's got the big cage pretty much on the back of his car.
Yes, big aero rake there to test all of the new aerodynamic bits on that Aston Martin. We also have a question from Andrew Townend saying, are Red Bull trying a new floor for this weekend? We have seen a floor being transported in secrecy with a bit of a cover going around it so that the rest of the grid couldn't see it when it was being transported into the Red Bull garage. They did bring that in, and we think that is some testing going on for next season.
Yeah, so let's go and see what happens around the track here. We're starting the lap, Fernando Alonso, who's going to do a test lap here with, of course, that aerial rake at the back of his car just to do some testing there for himself. Now, they didn't have a very good time out, Aston Martin, last race. Of course, Lance Stroll did not do too badly for himself, getting himself up from 19th up into, I think it was 9th.
9th place at the end of the race, making up 10 positions.
So,
yes.
technically, 8th or 7th because, of course, of those disqualifications from Leclerc and Hamilton, which means that he did actually really, really well. From where he started. Fernando Alonso, unfortunately, though, had to retire the car. So he's hoping for a much better weekend.
Yes, just getting a close look at that back of the Aston Martin with all of those aero rakes. It's very, very interesting to see all of those instruments on the back of the car. Teo Porcher coming back into the pits on the radio now, just saying he felt a bit strange going out and there was an alarm on the dashboard. So just coming back into the pits possibly to check that out. Maybe a brake issue from what I'm hearing, actually.
Yeah, not great for him to start out with that sort of thing on his first time in the F1 car.
Yeah, we'll certainly want to bring him in so it doesn't affect his confidence going throughout the rest of the session.
Yeah, so Not a Raccoon just joining us in the comments as well. Great to see you here. And Pureblood just also losing his mind over the fact that they gave Stroll the upgrades in the last race, which is why he did quite well from his position. And Fernando Alonso did not get them.
That would make a lot of sense. As Not a Raccoon says, is that Ollie Behrman at the moment out on track? It is Oliver Behrman. He is sitting in on one of the Haas seats for this session.
Yeah, so Ollie Behrman in one of the Haas's. Was he in the Haas? No, he's in a Haas. Yes, he is in a Haas. There he is. Going around now.
Ever Formula 2 winner. So really, really exciting to see what Oliver Behrman can do. I'd like to watch his times quite closely compared to Nick Hulkenberg in this session.
Well, his first sector times are 30.3 compared to Perez, who set at 28.9. Perez has gone around quickest.
23.9 rather, Mark.
No, I'm talking about sector 1.
Oh, sorry.
So
I'm talking about the entire lap.
Yeah, so sector 1, we've seen Ollie Behrman's quite slow compared to Perez. Of course, it is all testing. It is all very much just trying to get a feel for the track. So Perez has set the fastest lap of the day so far, 123.9. Everyone else following in the 124s and the 125s and 126s.
Piastri quite far down on his teammates at the moment, down in 5th with the 125.1.
Yes, of course, we're going to see lots of different lap times getting put in the first 20 minutes here. Do not take too much notice of the times themselves. We'll start to get a more clear indication further along into the session. Of course, different tests, different trials, different tires, different everything, basically. Just trying to get the setups all right in the first, second, and third practice sessions, this being the first of them, so you'll see some very big varying times.
We're seeing big cooling vents on the Haas this race weekend. That is going to be a big issue around the circuit, is cooling, as well as just pure efficiency from the engines. Because of the altitude that they're at, we're going to be speaking about it a lot. I'm sorry if you're getting tired of it already, but it does play a large factor around the circuit, and that is why we're seeing those massive amounts of cooling vents, and I think teams are really trying those new air vents this weekend, which is why they are really hoping to get it right. Otherwise, they're going to struggle in the race.
So looking at, Ollie Behrman's race here to F1, he got the Premier Racing 6th place in 2023 for F2. F3, he came 3rd for Premier Racing 2021. He did very well. So he's really started. He's like basically the next big shining star was, as Oscar Piastri was, of course. Basically the next one. Yeah.
He's pretty much Ferrari's next Charles Leclerc, is what he's being tipped to be. Of course, Charles Leclerc not necessarily living up to what Ferrari were hoping for, but I think that's also coming from Ferrari because they haven't been able to provide a race-winning car. But when they have had a race-winning car, they haven't had a race-winning strategy.
As we're now seeing these lap times starting to fall here, Ricciardo's gone quickest at 123.5. Piastri right behind him at 123.8. So not too bad there for those two drivers, as we're going to start seeing these times get much, much closer to the 119s, 118s as the session goes on. Of course, the lap record here, 114. So, yeah.
Frederick Vesti finishes up a lap. He finishes down in 12th, now 13th, as Ricciardo goes fastest out on circuit.
Yes, indeed, as we did note already. So Piastri's just gone behind Ricciardo. Hülkenberg now moves himself into 5th at 124.3. Sainz and Leclerc, though, in this Ferrari is doing a bit of testing out there. Verstappen now sets the first fastest sector. So let's see how he can do in the second and third.
Yes, just watching Verstappen currently going fast out on circuit. Mark is just going to go and open up some windows because it is getting very, very hot out here. It feels like we are in Mexico. Yeah, just watching Verstappen's middle sector as Alex Albon comes across the line with a 122.4. The first 122 of the weekend. I would be interested in seeing if he's on a different tyre compound. He might not be on one of the prototypes. We're seeing Max Verstappen not able to improve on his middle sector. He's now finally coming through the final sector there. Perez improves on his time with a 122.8, not able to match that of Alex Albon just yet, as Verstappen now usurps his teammate Sergio Perez with a 122.6. Still 0.2 down on Alex Albon at the moment. I'd really like to see what tyres Albon was on there, if he was on one of the prototypes or if he was on a set of mediums or softs. Seeing who else is going fast out on circuit at the moment is Charles Leclerc. He finishes with a 123.1. Daniel Ricciardo's on a slow lap at the moment. Who else is pushing out there? We've got Logan Sargent pushing 29.1 in the first sector, 33.2 in the second sector. He's coming around the third sector now, just waiting for him to come around the line there. He does come around the line now. Where does he put himself? I can't see him. Does he stay in 12th? He does. 124.7 is his lap time. Just looking at Sergio Perez out on track, we're hoping he's going to find his confidence yet again this weekend. He has had a bit of a confidence knock this season for some reason. We're hoping that at least he is able to come out of that slump at his home race and either get a race win or get another podium. I don't think he's been on the podium for quite some time now, if I remember correctly. We're watching shots of him going around out on circuit now. I think he's still on a slow lap. As we're watching a lot of work going on Teo Porcher's car, or rather Valtteri Bottas's car, but Teo Porcher is sitting in that seat for this session. Big issues by the looks of it as they're working around the power unit. Not necessarily what we would have wanted to see in this session at all. Disappointing for that rookie. Hopefully they'll be able to fix those issues before the end of the session so he can at least get some running. It would be a bit of a disappointment for him if he's not able to get any running done at all.
No, indeed. So we see that first little bit of a simulation or task in the first 10 minutes of the session is pretty much done, as a lot of teams are making their way back into the pits here. A couple of teams have not made their way out. We see Fernando Alonso he did make his way out, of course, did not put a time in though.
Porcher, as you said, those error rates on.
Yeah, so Porcher, of course, as you've mentioned already, he's also still back in the pits with no time. Neither does Jack Doohan, of course, in 18th in that Alpine. Neither does Hadjar and Norris.
Hadjar had a bit of a braking issue by the sounds of things. As we're watching a replay, I think this is of Hadjar coming down the straight.
Oh my
word! You can see a big piece of something fall off of his car when he opens his rear wing. I wonder if that was maybe the mechanism that opens that rear wing, the actuator, the DRS actuator. It possibly was that went flying off there. I see we have 170 of you watching alongside with us. Do be sure to smash that like button and share the video with all of your friends as Esteban Ocon goes up into 7th in that Alpine. On a set of hards, notably, Alex Albon finished his lap time I would expect on a set of test tyres, as it's not showing a set of tyres alongside him there.
Well, they do show the test tyres next to people's names when they do use them. But yes, Alex Albon has gone quickest to 122.4. Verstappen behind him now, setting a first purple sector and a personal best in the second sector and setting some mini purple sectors in sector 3. So we're likely looking at the new fastest lap of the day from Max Verstappen. Could well be a 121 from the Red Bull driver. Let's see how he finishes up in that final sector, though, of course. And yeah, we'll see these times tumble again. Lap record is a 114. So quite a distance off of that right now.
Verstappen does now go faster out on circuit with a 121.8. So finally being able to break that 121 barrier now finally and get ahead of Alex Albon, who was looking quite dominant out on circuit. In that, we're seeing that piece of metal still out on circuit at the moment. They haven't removed it after that carve. I think it was Hudges. We're watching Verstappen come around the final corner, just a replay there, and you can still see that piece of metal.
I actually think it was Berman's car because it was a Haas, which means that...
No, it wasn't. It was the AlphaTauri.
Was it not a Haas?
They look very similar. It was definitely an AlphaTauri.
Okay.
I get confused sometimes. Well, Watching, though, out on circuit, we've got a couple of drivers in the pits. That's Hamilton.
Yellow flag,
Scholl,
sector
Becky,
1.
Yeah.
What's that from? I
It
think somebody
looks
might have
like
spun a little bit. Let's
Possibly
see.
Leclerc. He's going quite slowly.
I
into
think
sector
maybe they're
one.
doing yellow flag for the debris, maybe. The
Possibly.
piece of debris might have been collected as they saw a gap. They might have gone and said, let's go and collect that. Let's go and take that off the track. So, yeah, I think that's all cleared. The door is all cleared. Nothing untoward has happened. So I think that piece of debris, as we mentioned, has made its way off the track. So Percy just saying, Piastri and Vesti, I'm so looking forward to how this will play out.
Just watching what this yellow flag was for by the looks of things, I think it was Carlos Sainz coming through turn 1 very slowly. It looks like he has an engine issue though, Mark. I'm going to listen on the radio and just see as he comes on. Saying, I've lost the hydraulics of the car. I'm going to try and make it back. I have no power steering. Sorry to Sergio Perez because I messed up his lap, but I have an issue with the car. So he's completely lost hydraulics. Really struggling to get that car around the corners. Apparently, Charles Leclerc also heard a weird sound in his car. So not going well for the two Ferraris, who I think were having very old engines in their cars for this race weekend and have not decided to replace them.
Yeah, it is quite scary there. Lindiwe joining us again. Hello everybody. Indeed, hello Lindiwe in the comments. Cora just saying the last time Perez was on the podium was in Italy.
Sorry, I wasn't listening. I'm listening to the radio.
No, saying the last time Perez was on the podium was in Italy. So quite a fair while.
Quite some time ago then. Carlos Sainz has now made his way back into the pits. Probably for the best of Sergio Perez now as he gets out of his way. Sergio Perez starting another hot lap. He sets the fastest first sector. He's now out on a set of medium tyres, finally off of those test tyres.
Yeah, so let's see how everybody does during the rest of this session. Of course, we'll see some soft tyre runs, perhaps, at the end of the session. Unlikely, though, we're going to see a lot of race simulations here. So, pretty much, let's just have a chat. As we see, Perez has set 2 purple sectors, Sector 1 and Sector 2. Let's see what he does in Sector 3, the home driver. Very keen to see whether or not we have, will we have a yellow flag, a red flag in this session? Are we gonna see something untoward like that?
I think with the amount of rookies, yes. I think once they start to push, they might have a little bit of spin. They might have a little bit of Norris saying something's happened.
Lots of cars already struggling
Apparently
with
the
this.
revs are down on his car.
Yeah, so everyone's pretty much having a lot of engine issues so far in the beginning of the session. We've seen already Pourchaire not Alonso, but Pourchaire has an issue so far. Both Ferraris have had issues. A Haas, or rather an AlphaTauri, has lost a piece of its car. Now hearing issues in the McLaren.
That piece of debris is still out on track. I just saw it again. Sergio Perez, though, as we say, he was on a hot lap. He did go even faster with a 121.5. So apparently it wasn't under revving on Norris's car. Was going over the limits almost, going over the limiter. So that could be bad for his car in terms of the engine life. Apparently the McLaren fans are saying it's fine. Not McLaren fans, the McLaren engineers are saying it's fine though. As Perez is now under threat a little bit from Max Verstappen going even faster out on circuit. Watching this moment from Lando Norris, I think it might have been as he went out to the pits that it over-revved. Just listening to it as he does go out.
Just doesn't want to change.
Yes, it just goes very high up into the revs. And that doesn't sound necessarily healthy. He struggles to get it into gear, but it seems to be running fine now out on circuit. It's very unnerving for the drivers, but these cars are so temperamental. They're just really technical pieces of machinery that they run out on circuit that are run by a million computers back at the factories, as well as in the pit lane.
Yeah, exactly that. So we've now already had 15 minutes of the session. We still have no times from Alonso, Pourchaire, Doohan, and Norris. Norris now, of course, going out onto track, sitting at that time after having a small issue in the beginning there. So he's going to go out on a set of hards. It looks like indeed it's a set of hards. Let's see what he can do in that McLaren. His teammate Piastri sits up in 9th. Norris now sits the first sector of 28.7. It's about 0.6 seconds down of Verstappen's time, which of course is the quickest right now as he set a 120.2.
Wow, even faster than before. Apparently Théo Pourchaire has gone out on an outlap and he still has issues with his brakes, unfortunately. Lando Norris now out on circuit. What can he do on the set of hards? He's really sliding this car around a little bit through the middle sector, but looking really hooked up at the moment through the S's. Where can he put himself now as he comes down that long straight, getting a little bit of a drag from that? Ooh, he goes over the limits there, just trying to keep out of the way of that Alpine. Esteban Ocon getting in his way a little bit, and he has to abandon off of that lap. Lindiwe saying, a curious question from a Sky interview. It was heard that Helmut commented on Red Bull maybe letting Albon go early. Do you think Red Bull would ever offer him their second seat again? Would Albon take it? And what is our take? So already I think I pretty much heard Christian Horner or Helmut Marko say in an interview once that Albon has had his chance in that Red Bull seat. Unfortunately, he won't get it again or something along those lines. I certainly think that he has the potential to put himself really, really highly in that seat and perform really well as well, because he's just been doing so well in that Williams this year and really outperforming the car and his teammates at every single session.
Indeed, exactly that. Sorry, just having a look at a couple of things in the stream just to go and fix that up. So, yeah, let's go and see what happens with Jack Doohan for his road to F1. Looking at that F2, and F3 and F3 in 2020 throughout all the years. Currently, he races for Invicta Virtuosi Racing. He's currently sitting 4th in the championship. So, not doing too badly there.
Yes, he's doing relatively well in Formula 2 at the moment, as we see Pierre Gasly sitting on the sidelines, watching on as his car gets taken around the track by Jack Doohan.
I think he's hoping and making sure that he doesn't mess up his car, just watching this going very, very carefully, just saying, please don't
Yes,
do
please
anything.
don't crash it, because that would not be great. Lando Norris has finished up his lap with a 122.3, puts himself up into 4th on a set of hards. Not bad at the moment for himself.
No, not too bad at all. So just looking at the rest of the grid right now, Jack Doohan is, as we've seen, now setting his first lap of the day. And Vesti is still not got a lap time behind his name either. So that Mercedes is yet to be seen from him. What can he do you reckon today? I mean, is it going to be a battle of the rookies in the session?
I think it will be for sure. They're all in that bottom, well, I won't say they're all in the bottom 5, but we've got Fernando Alonso there as well with those rookies right now. We're waiting for him to put in a proper time, but he should be able to do that relatively soon, I'm hoping.
I'm seeing a very, very weird conversation happening in the comments, which is the fact that everybody's apparently crocheting whilst watching. I don't have crocheting stuff here, so I can't join you in that regard, but I hope you guys enjoy. Maybe let us know, what are you making? That would be interesting to know. Are you making a Max Verstappen jersey?
Sergio Perez
jersey. Yes. What is being designed here? It's the new helmet cover. So it's very, very fun things that we could possibly see. So Jack Doohan finishing up his lap now. Where will he move? He moves into 11th position. Not too bad for him. A 123.5.
Piastri's currently out on the circuit. He's on on an out lap, and he's on a set of softs.
Yeah.
So that's going to be quite interesting to see how they handle with the high temperatures around the circuit. Isaac Hadja moves himself up into 9th, which is brilliant in that AlphaTauri. Steering wheel change for Teo Porcher, possibly that which is causing the brake issues apparently.
So faulty steering wheels, really not what you want to have as a rookie going into F1. Quite a scary thought, I'm sure he must be thinking right now. So let's see what Piastri can do as he starts a lap here on a set of softs. We could very well be looking at the fastest lap of the day from him. The first soft tyre run, certainly want to keep our eyes on what sort of times he can put in that McLaren. He currently sits down in 13th after his first earlier runs, a 123.6. He's setting new personal bests throughout Sector 1. No purple sectors, though. Mini sectors, that is. So let's see what time he puts in at the end of Sector 1 here. Just still looking in that garage of both Aston Martin and Alfa Romeo, trying to fix Porcher's car, as well as, I think, that is Fernando Alonso's car.
Yes, it is. A bit of work going on at the back by the rear suspension of Fernando Alonso's car. Hopefully they get that sorted out relatively quickly, because we haven't seen a representative time being put in from him. His teammate Lance Stroll is up in P11 right now, as Oscar Piastri is going around out on track on those softs right now. What can he do?
Well, he's got a personal best in the first sector. He's got a few
down though in the first sector.
Yeah, but I think he's running high fuel possibly. I think he's going to do a few attempts here. So second sector is also quite good though. Personal best and a couple of mini purple sectors. Very, very close to Max Verstappen's time in that second sector. I think still down on Max Verstappen's time, but we could be looking to see what he does in this last sector as well. He's got a couple of personal bests already so far.
And big
he's
snap through the middle sector, though, as he comes through by that second DRS zone. He finishes up his lap, and he does go ahead of his teammate. But his teammate did that lap on a set of hard tyres, of course it is. 1.2 seconds faster.
Yeah, it is quite a bit faster than his teammates. So we've seen now 4 drivers in the 120s, everybody else in the 122s and 123s, basically.
Yes, we'd expect them to be able to go a bit faster than that. Hopefully they'll be able to find a bit more pace throughout the rest of this race weekend, as the 3 drivers ahead of him are all on mediums.
Indeed, it's exactly that. So medium tyres have been quicker than Piastri's soft tyres. But again, I think he might be going down another warm down lap, and then he'll go again. I think we might see quicker laps from Piastri on those set of softs. We should see quicker laps on those softs. Everybody having a very big discussion about the crocheting. I tell you what, people are saying, imagine we were making merchandise for...
Well, you better send some to us.
Well, quite frankly, I think you know what you guys can do. I think that would be very fun to see. Is go and tag us or something. Go and crochet a little Forever Motorsports logo or something, you know.
Or Forever Motorsports beanie. Or...
Yeah, that'd be quite fun. And
you can
share
tag
it with us.
You can tag us on Twitter or Instagram, as well as... Well, we've got TikTok. I don't know if you can tag people on TikTok. I'm not very well versed on TikTok.
I think you can.
I don't know. Don't ask me.
Nonetheless, just let us know. Let us know. It'd be great to see if you guys wanted to do that. It's a big ask, but you know, maybe you can make something tiny, like a little patch. That'd be quite fun. Lance Stroll going around on a set of hards. He's currently sitting down in 12th or 13th rather position. He set a new personal best in Sector 1, 28.8. It's still well down on Max Verstappen's time of 28.1 in that first sector. So his second sector also a bit slower than he would have liked. So not going around too well. I'm sure it's just race simulations for that Aston Martin.
He is on a set of hards as well.
But his teammate Fernando Alonso is still the only one in the pits right now that has yet to set a time. Puccia has now made his way out. He's on the out lap. Seems like they finally fixed those issues.
It does look a lot better for himself there. Hopefully that will put an end to his issues there today. I'm interested in seeing where Frederick Vesti is there in the Mercedes. He's down in 17th at the moment, whereas Hamilton is up in 14th.
Yeah, so we're seeing quite a bit of a slow start from the Mercedes, I suppose. Stroll crossed the line into 8th position now. So not too bad for him. Still in the 122s though, but he is on hard tyre runs, whereas those right at the top are on medium. So if we're looking at Felipe Drugovich, the reserve driver of Aston Martin, who of course did have a little bit of experience in the F1 car at the beginning of the season when Stroll, of course, had his bike crash and had a little bit of surgery on his wrists. He didn't, however, race that race. As we're seeing Jack Doohan make a little bit of a mess up there into one of the turns. Which turn is that, Reece?
That is turn 6 through there, I think it is. Yeah, just carrying that car a little bit too quickly through the apex and losing the rear bit, having to make a couple corrections. But just carrying on, watching out on everyone else out on circuit right now. A lot of people commenting in the comment section. Thank you very much for joining us. Do be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. We're so close now to 2,000 subs. Let's get there before the next session, if we can.
But you're saying he's got the same issue. He's got the same issue, so he's going to have to come back into the box. But he's going to have to come back into the pits rather, box again. So he's having a terrible time in his very first time in an F1 car. He was hoping he could do some awesome things. Everybody at home, I think, is also really hoping that we could have seen what he could do. He's
currently the leader of the Formula 2 season right now, so really we're looking forward to what he could have done in terms of his pace compared to Zhou Guanyu. But I don't know if they're going to be able to sort this issue out. There's only 35 minutes left of the session.
Yeah, so it's not a lot of time, and they've still got issues with that car. They need to find out what it is. Zhou Guanyu probably watching on going, well, luckily it's you that's having to be stuffed around rather than me. As we see George Russell in the pits, of course, who has taken himself out of this for that Vesti appearance. He's watching there alongside Mick Schumacher and Toto Wolff, of course, looking at all the data there.
Yes, we're watching Lewis Hamilton coming through that Furasol sector there through the grandstands and setting himself up now for a push lap. He's on still a prototype tyre from Pirelli, but let's see what he can do on this lap. I think he's been on those tyres for quite some time now.
Yeah, I think they're doing long runs here, is Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton, but this time he's got the DRS wide open, so he might be doing a little bit of a push before he comes back into the pits or that, or he's just come out and he's starting a new strategy here, and he's going to do a fast lap straight away, and then he'll go back to long runs for the rest of, for a little while at least. So let's see what he can do with regards to Max Verstappen's time. He approaches to Sector 1. He gets a 28.9, so quite well down Max Verstappen's time, 0.8 seconds. Of course, he's on those testing tyres, which is technically a medium tyre. So I think the testing tyres are quite a bit slower than the actual medium tyres. So I also think this is not necessarily a very accurate race run. I'm sure we're going to probably see the fact that this is more testing than anything else.
Yes, he's looking relatively neat and tidy. We haven't had any issues so far from track limits. It is a really, really tricky and technical circuit, so you would expect people to go over the track limits, and I'm sure the FIA will be monitoring that relatively stringently throughout qualifying on Saturday evening. Hamilton making a slight adjustment and a slight correction on his steering wheel through turn 12, making his way through turn 13 and 14 now, through that baseball stadium and through the Foot of Soul grandstands. Amazing, amazing viewing opportunity for the Mexican fans there. He comes around the final corner now, the 17th corner of the circuit, across the line and up into 8th. Much better from Lewis Hamilton on
Well, then, of course, the 122.27, still quite
on
slow.
a really old set of tyres though, Mark.
Yeah, I
So
suppose that
think
is
not
a...
bad.
That is a good point. And Noel Portquita is joining us here on the stream saying hi from a hot as Hades, Johannesburg. Well,
Yes.
Trust me, we know that. We're also in Johannesburg. It
We've
is
got the
very
fan
warm.
set up. No,
It is very warm. We had to go fetch the fan. It is very hot here in Johannesburg. Not necessarily as hot as some of these drivers are feeling, of course, out on what is technically a 40-degree track. And I'm sure it's a little hotter now that they've got a bit of rubber going around.
And they've got a roaring engine behind them as well. As we're seeing a bit of work going on Carlos Sainz's car, of course, he reported that engine issue and the hydraulics issue on one of his push laps and was able to come back into the pits. He's still sitting in that car, but he is up on the stilts. They're doing a lot of work there, I think, on the engine and just trying to get that car ready to go back out on circuit. Hopefully he'll get a few laps done before the end of the session.
Yeah, Carlos Sainz, of course, had a few issues earlier as well as Leclerc spotted one thing, but Leclerc now starts a hot lap on a set of softs. Very interesting to see. So he set that first sector, 28.2, right behind Max Verstappen. Let's see what you can do in Sector 2 and Sector 3 on those set of softs.
Oliver Behrman moves himself up into 10th now, Mark, on a set of hards.
So Oliver Behrman, the quickest of the rookies so far on a set of hards. Hajar, Duhan, and Vesti and Pocher are all in the bottom 10. Behrman up in 10th position. Leclerc, let's see what he does in Sector 2. He's got a couple of purple mini sectors.
One down in the first sector, so not too bad.
That's what I say, yeah. So let's see if he can do quite well. And he's got a 30.9. Very good for Sector 2. So
Yes, purple overall. So let's see what he can do through the final sector. I see some more purple mini sectors there. We would expect him to be quite fast on these soft tyres. Really, really hooked up through that middle sector. Ooh, bit of a slide though through turn 11. He would have lost some time through there as he does finish up that lap now with a 120.2. He could have gone faster without that slide in that middle sector.
yeah, so he should have gone fastest there, Leclerc. You pretty much would have gone fastest, and as we said, a little bit of a slide there just before the big baseball section. And another slide.
Another mistake, yes, understeer.
Oh, and there also missed the apex as well. So a terrible end to that lap from Leclerc. So could have well been a 119.
0.052 down on that fastest lap time from Verstappen. Albon, though, still up in second. Brilliant from the Thai driver. Thai driver.
British driver. Well, yes. The Williams driver. But yeah, so he did very well there on a set of mediums, of course. We still have yet to know what sort of runs they're all running out on. As, race simulations, qualifying simulations, the similar sort of things we're going to see as we see a couple of Ferrari fans in the crowd there supporting the Zuri, of course. And we're still seeing Alonso having his car worked on at the back. They're clearly trying to get some changes on that rear wing.
I wonder if it's maybe a floor issue, as they're looking quite low down, or possibly the beam wing that they're trying to set up. Zhou Guanyu, he comes across the line. He goes up into 8th now. I think the circuit is starting to rubber up and grip up quite quickly as they're going around on a set of softs. Logan Sargent's up in 7th. He got his first points in Formula 1 last weekend out, of course, given to him by that disqualification of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. He got his first point in Formula 1 then.
Yeah, so we have now reached halfway through the session. We've got half an hour left, half an hour remaining. Let us know your thoughts of what's happened so far in the first half an hour. Who are we surprised about? Of course, Pocher is the only one who we're quite upset about because he's yet to set a time, and
As
it's the
well
rookie.
as Alonso.
Yeah,
I'm still quite
but
upset about Alonso.
I think it's more Pocher because, of course, we've never seen him in an F1 car. Everyone wants to see what he's doing. He currently leads F2. As we see, Zhou Guanyu went right over that debris. Basically, maybe he wants to try and get rid of it. I think he was bored of it, maybe.
Possibly, yes.
I think he
Just
literally
watching a
almost
replay of
aims
it.
for it. He definitely aims for it. He goes, you know what? Let's take that off the racing line a little
I
bit.
think it is just a piece of trash from the crowd there. And yeah, just looking on at the pit wall where Teo Porcher is still Actually, no, he's back out on circuit now. I was going to say he's still in the pits, but he is out on circuit. Hopefully, they've been able to fix that issue now, and he can get in a good lap.
Where is he on circuit?
All the way down on 20th, it's showing he's got lap times being put in.
No, he's not out
Is
on
he
track.
not out?
No, he's not out on track.
Okay, I thought it was still moving, so I thought
No.
he may have been out on circuit.
Still issues for him. Still issues for Alonso as well. So those two have yet to set times. Vesti right down there in 18th. Very slow for him in that Mercedes. But Hamilton's also up in 11th only. So not too great. Not too brilliant for him either. The Alpine Alpine stand-in driver down 17th on a set of mediums. He should be quite a further up the field. He is the lowest mediums runner and the only mediums runner that is not inside the top 10.
I'm very impressed by Oliver Behrman so far. It's his first time in a Formula 1 car. He's up in 12th. He's ahead of Vesti, who is in a Mercedes.
Of course, we don't know what Mercedes are running. But yes.
Yes, but I still think that's relatively impressive because he's on a set of hards. No matter what tyres Vesti's been testing out on those test tyres, they're either hard, medium, or soft. So it's either he's on the same tyre as Behrman or better. Just looking at the track dominance between Verstappen and Albon, Verstappen has it through the majority of the high-speed sectors, and Albon has it through the majority of those technical sectors. Really interesting to see that.
Yeah, so clearly Williams has set up their car for a little bit of quicker cornering and higher downforce.
Or possibly just getting it really, really good on the brakes.
Yeah, possibly. Max Verstappen, of course, still will be likely to go ahead and be our quickest driver. So, yeah, replay of Lewis Hamilton. Maybe just going over a little bit too much of the curbs there. Just seeing quite some heavy turning on the curbs there. Just, throwing the car off a little bit, bouncing a little bit around. And see a slide there,
yes,
as well.
This is in turn 3 at the beginning of this lap. I think those are still those test tyres, so he's been on them for a really long time now. And we're hoping he'll come in soon and put on a set of new tyres so we can see what his true pace is. He is in the pits at the moment. We should have him out on circuit quite soon. Lando Norris out on circuit though now, Mark.
Yeah, so just looking at the number of laps that have been set, Alex Albon has set 18 laps. He's more than anybody else there by quite some distance. Hulkenberg on 15, Piastri on 17 to be fair as well. But very interesting to see the Williams of Alex Albon. 18 laps is completed and he's still second fastest. So brilliant from him as well. As we're looking at Joe Bauer, of course, part of the FIA. He's having a look at what's happening in Sainz's garage to understand what these issues are.
Yes, one of the technical directors of the FIA, they're watching on as Fernando Alonso's car is still being worked on. He was watching on, Joe Bauer was watching on the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz's, who's finally fixed up and ready to get back out onto circuit. However, for Fernando Alonso, his car is still getting worked on at the rear by the BMW. Ricciardo's in the pits though at the moment. He's done relatively well for himself. He's up in P5. That's some really good lap times. He's ahead of Piastri and Norris.
Yeah, and now looking at Norris, who's starting a lap here on a set of softs. It's 0.2 down of Verstappen's time already, so a little bit too much already to probably try and go for that fastest lap attempt, but not too bad there. He should be aiming for around about 3rd/4th position. Perez, the home driver, of course, is now on an out lap. Let's see what he can do as well. Norris, though, does set, a purple sector in sector 2, as Verstappen now also back out on a set of softs. It's his first time on softs. He sets a first sector that's purple. Leclerc finishes up his lap with a purple 3rd sector. It's not quickest time. The Norris now goes quickest, a 1:20.237, 0.008 seconds quicker than Verstappen. But Verstappen is following with a very, very quick time here on his first lap.
What can he do in the middle sector? He's about to cross that line for the middle sector now. Come on, Max, hurry up. Just waiting for him to cross that sector
purple
marker.
sectors along the whole way as Perez now sets a purple sector in sector 1.
Max not able to take that purple sector from Norris, but he is very, very close. 0.01 down there, I think, as he's coming now through the final sector. Where can he put himself? He's coming around that final corner now, turn at 17. He crosses the line and he goes even faster with a 1:19.7. Very, very quick through that final sector, clearly.
Indeed, and Perez lost quite a lot of time in sector 2, so he's not going to go quickest.
Verstappen was still on a set of mediums.
Was he really? No,
Yes.
it said softs.
Mediums.
I think that might be wrong. As our usually this is right. So Perez though lost quite a bit of time in sector 2. Let's see what he does in sector 3.
Yes, sorry, it was because his old lap time was set on a set of mediums.
Yeah.
Where can Perez put himself though, Mark? Crosses the line
only
now.
fourth.
Only 4th with a 1:20.263. Not able to match his teammate just yet, but not too far off the rest of those top runners right now.
So Max Verstappen very much in a league of his own. Almost, actually, it is more than half a second quicker than Lando Norris behind him. Lando Norris and Alex Albon exceptionally close together. Perez also right on the tails of those two drivers. Charles Leclerc finished up in 5th. Ricciardo still up in 6th. Piastri in 7th. Zhou in 8th. Sargent in 9th. And Ocon in 10th. Those rookies still struggling out there compared to those more experienced F1 drivers. Pourchaire still yet to make his way out of the pits. He's still got issues with his cars. We're seeing lots of high-vis paint on Ishaq Hadjar's AlphaTauri car, and just seeing him go quite heavily onto the curb there.
Yes, a lot of high flow vis paint on that car. It is really getting all over the place. You can even see it a bit on his helmet. Hopefully it doesn't get on his visor too much, because that stuff really does smear all over the place if you wipe it with your hand. Watching Sergio Perez, or this is Max Verstappen rather, on I think he's on an in-lap right now. He says, I need to box, there's something loose there's something loose between my feet. So that's quite interesting to see that. Maybe a tool or something left in there by the engineers.
Or maybe he's made a discovery. But yes, Max Verstappen making his way back to the pits. Apparently something is loose between his feet there in his seat. So he's going to have to go and sort that out, unfortunately for him. I think he wanted to do a couple of laps on those softs, so he's now had to come in straight away. Don't think it'll affect him too much. As we see Ollie Berman also putting in a lot of laps here in 14th position. 20 laps he is registered behind his name, as Ishaq Hadjar is now our quickest running rookie for the day. Berman in 14th, Vesti in 16th, Duhan in 18th, and Pourchaire, of course, very disappointingly, has yet to get a proper lap in. As we're now seeing, I think this is Carlos Sainz. Yes, it is. He's back out. Yes.
Out through the first sector. He's gone straight out onto a set of softs. 0.2 down on Max Verstappen, though, in that first sector. 31.0 in the middle sector. I do see a purple mini sector for himself. That is still quite a bit down on Max Verstappen's time of a 30.8 in that middle sector. What will he be able to do in the final sector now as he comes around there? Where is he? He's coming through the stadium sector now and around the second to last and now the last corner as he approaches that finish line. Where can he put his Ferrari? He only goes up into P6 with a 120.479. It is so close between the top 6 right now.
Indeed, I do enjoy Notto Kuhn's joke, just saying, tell Verstappen that's why it's called a cockpit. Yes, I do quite enjoy the joke. Yes, very, very, very interesting there. But that's more or less what I had alluded to as well. So, yes, just a bit of a funny thing there. Can't remember which driver was it that had...
Vettel.
Yeah, it was Sebastian Vettel who had that...
There's something in between my legs aside from the obvious. That was the quote from him. As we're seeing a couple drivers carrying out their runs. We're seeing Lando Norris still running out on those soft tyres and seeing we're seeing Max Verstappen out of the car and they're removing whatever was next to his feet as he is out of the cockpit and looking at some of the data over the shoulder of Helmut Marko.
Yes, and speaking of helmets, of course, he's still wearing his championship winner's helmet, which some drivers don't tend to do, but Max Verstappen has. We're watching a replay now of Ollie Berman missing the turn completely. They're just, I think, late into the brakes. Maybe he had a little bit of a lock up in the rear.
Relatively old right now as he's going wide there into turn 12, as you say. I think Max Verstappen isn't really one for superstition. A lot of drivers don't like to run the number one car for an entire season. Max Verstappen has gone and done that. A lot of drivers don't like to run championship-winning helmets. Max Verstappen doesn't really care. He goes and does that as well. He doesn't care about curses. He broke the Monza curse this year. And just breaking a lot of records throughout the season as well.
Watching analysis between turn 6 for Verstappen and Norris, looking at where they brake versus where they put the throttle down, it's interesting to notice that Verstappen can brake a little bit later, slightly later than Norris. He can come into it at a faster speed than Norris and then leave. They pretty much leave on the same throttle. So Verstappen, as a result, is 0.11 seconds faster just through that turn.
Hamilton has moved himself up into 8th. He gets dropped down into 9th. As Stroll moves up into 7th with a 120.6. More drivers getting into that 120 mark. Pretty much the top 11 are all in that 120 sector right now. Or 120 lap time.
Yeah, the 120s there are looking very, very busy. I'm sure we're going to see some more 119s towards the end of the session as Perez now starts a hot lap on a set of softs. DRS wide open. Let's see if he can improve upon his previous time there. He's gone slower in Sector 1 than his already best. Although Sector 2 he's got a couple of personal bests now in Sector 2. Maybe he could speed up a little bit. I think he's still too slow though after Sector 1 there. To challenge for the 119s perhaps. As we see, TC is joining us. Good evening. Another weekend of late nights for you guys, indeed.
Yes, another weekend of very late nights. Tonight is the latest of them. and then it gets a bit more friendly from tonight onwards.
Yeah, so we've of course got practice 2 coming up later tonight. It's very late for us, but I'm sure we'll see all of you guys there tuning in. We've got 19 minutes left of this session though, as Perez has gone quicker in Sector 2 than he has all day. But Sector 3 also looking relatively good. I think he will improve upon his time, as he does improve upon his time, a 120.015. So close to the 119s for the home driver.
Yes, much closer now on that lap. I think that is also a set of softs for him. Yes, it is, as we're seeing those replays. Fernando Alonso, where is he at the moment? He's still on those test tires, so he's running the program he needed to do earlier on in the session, and then hopefully he'll get out and do a lap or two on the set of softs.
At least he's back out there, of course. Yes. Had a few issues with his car, but now they've fixed them up.
Time on circuit.
Yeah, it's really, really upsetting not to see Porsche get out on track. He's not got much time left, just 18 minutes now, of course. So he really is probably watching that clock going, oh, please hurry up, please hurry up, please hurry up, please hurry up. Because unfortunately, as much as all of us would have loved for him, in case he doesn't get any time to go and do, maybe he gets given practice 2 to go and do it, they can't afford at this sort of level to actually do any of that. So this is his only chance he's going to get in the Formula 1 car this season, one imagines. As we're now looking at Antonio Perez Garibay, of course, is Sergio Perez's father. All smiles, as per usual. A very, very happy man. And actually a very respectful man. Always there defending Max Verstappen from all the Mexican fans. And always speaks very highly of all the drivers. Has never had a big issue. So we're just seeing Alonso there. Just caught the curb a little bit too much in his car. Just spun him a little bit on the floor there. Just looking at that. As it just catches the curb too much and the car just loses a little bit of control there. So interesting for Fernando Alonso. Of course, is back out on track after those issues earlier.
Yes, he does just step slightly wide there over the curb, and the curb does upset the floor as you go over there on your skid plank. Skid planks, of course, have become a big point of topic in the last week after the Austin Grand Prix, or the US Grand Prix rather, that had Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc disqualified. This weekend we should see their true pace though, hopefully with a bit more raised cars in order not to fall foul to that issue again. But I think it was due to the fact that, of course, they only had a single practice session there. They were running new upgrades on the Mercedes. I think they were just being a little bit optimistic on the Ferrari, running a bit lower, and didn't expect it to wear so much throughout the weekend. Charles Leclerc's car, though, was reportedly only 0.01 or so millimeters over the allowed tolerances in Formula 1. But rules are rules, and you're only allowed 1 millimeter of I think it is 1 millimeter of wear throughout an entire Grand Prix. So the tolerances are really, really low, and we haven't had issues on the floor, on the skid planks in years in Formula 1.
And it's an interesting thing, though, as well. We talk about that, and of course, Reece did it in his shows earlier this week and in some of his videos. But let's have a discussion right now, right before the end of it. I mean, do you think it was fair to have only tested, they of course take a random sample group, and yet when you look at the random sample group, it seems to always be the same sort of cars sometimes. And if you find 2 cars having been having infringed upon it, do they not go and test more cars? Because at that point you have to think, well, if 2 constructors out of all of them, and you've only had how many tested? 3, I think it was. 4?
It was 4 cars that were tested, and 2 out of 4, so 50%. So
50% are not within the rules. Surely you go and test more cars as a result.
Unfortunately, in Formula 1, you have to understand that these type of processes and tests take a long time. By the time they've already figured out that there was these issues for the cars that they did decide to test, the teams had already started taking apart their cars for shipping.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So what you actually want to do is ride a low floor and then immediately disassemble your car afterwards so that they can't be selected.
Well, no, of course, your car does get weighed and has some normal scrutineering tests after the race. But then I think it's only a lot later when those other cars get put under more stringent scrutineering that they do come to the decision that maybe they did need to test a couple more cars.
Yeah, I did enjoy Gary's comment there, and Cora's already responded to it. It says, I believe if Checo got up to second in the Grand Prix behind Max in the final laps, that Max would let him through. Not a chance.
Never.
Not a chance. This is Max Verstappen. He is an out-and-out winner, serial winner. He doesn't deal in the concept of letting somebody by. He would rather crash than let somebody by, I think. So, no, you wouldn't see Max Verstappen let Checo go by, even if it is his home Grand Prix. Not a chance.
No, I don't think so, ever. Max Verstappen is currently seeking a single season record of 16 wins in a season, which he could do at this race weekend.
Yeah, indeed. So TC also saying, unfortunately, they tested Mercedes and Ferraris more than anybody else this season. That's what I pretty much said. I said it's not so random, unfortunately, as he says. So it's not that random. Yeah, one does have to feel sorry for those
cars
cars.
were tested during the Japanese Grand Prix, so they do decide to test more cars at certain race weekends. But unfortunately, for this last race weekend, they only did 4.
Yeah, I mean, I still think that there has to be a policy in place that if 50% or more of the 4 that's tested or whatever, or how many is tested,
of your testing
come back and say there's problems there, that you have to test the rest of the grid, because one has to look at that and think, well, there might, maybe everybody's taking a chance, and you can't just disqualify those who happened to have been tested. You can't just disqualify those ones. You have to surely try and find everybody else and see if anybody else should be disqualified, because, of course, when we see Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton get dealt a really bad hand, whereas somebody else who finished in the points might have also been testing that out a little bit, especially their teammates.
I was going to say, what about George Russell, who got promoted up the order, as well as Carlos Sainz, who got promoted to a podium position? He got a 3rd place due to that.
Absolutely ridiculous. As Albon sets a purple sector in Sector 1. He's been doing so well so far in practice session 1. A purple sector in Sector 1. He's got a few personal bests in Sector 2, as well as a purple sector. Let's see if you can get a new purple sector at Sector 2 as he comes towards the end of that sector now. Personal best, but not a purple sector. It's a little bit down on Max Verstappen's time, but I think we could see a 119 from Alex Albon. Let's just follow on here, Reece, as we go around the final few corners for Alex Albon. Do you think he can break into the 119s?
I certainly think he should be able to with the current lap. He should be up on Sergio Perez this time, at least, if not being able to take a chunk of time closer to Max Verstappen, as he really is quite close there. He gets into the 119s with a 119.8 into second, though, still behind Max Verstappen, who set a 119.718. Exactly, or almost exactly 0.1 behind him.
Yeah, so interesting there. I enjoyed TC's comment, just saying, the reason why Carlos Sainz, of course, moved into the podium positions after those disqualifications is just simply because he's a smooth operator.
Yes, TC. After Raccoon going, Lando and Hamilton commented on how there were many more illegal cars on the grid, but they didn't get checked and hence were saved. Apparently, a lot of competitors were talking to each other after the race and saying that their cars were illegal and were found to be illegal, but they just felt really lucky not to be tested. Looking at Zhou Guanyu's car, he is also having some issues, as is his teammate, or for the session, Teo Porcher, who has not been able to run out a single hot lap around the circuit.
Yeah, it's really disappointing for the current F2 leader. He's currently leading the championship there. He's very much on track to win it as well. So everybody was really keen to see what he could do in that in that Formula 1 seat, of course, in the Alfa Romeo.
Yes.
And he's got about 10 minutes left, just over 10 minutes left, and it doesn't look like he's going to get out there. So exceptionally upsetting for him. And I think all of us at home are also really quite peeved, if anything, at Alfa Romeo for giving him a car that just doesn't work.
Piastri has now moved himself up into 6th place on a set of test tyres with a 120.4. Just seeing a good comment there from Lindiwe saying it was Carlos's 3rd podium inheritance from a disqualification. 2 of those inheritances have come off the back of Lewis Hamilton's misfortune.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis Hamilton must be a little bit peeved about life with that. And of course, he's got nothing against Carlos Sainz for doing that. It's just the fact that Carlos Sainz seems to capitalize on Lewis Hamilton getting caught out by the rules.
Yes, watching Hamilton at the moment go around the circuit on a set of hard tyres, not necessarily putting in any great sector times right now, but we'd expect him to be on relatively high load of fuel. Yeah,
so Mercedes seem to have definitely identified this session as very much race simulation and high fuel loads throughout the entire session. That's why we see Vesti down in 19th.
Hamilton down in 11th. Of softs now, Mark. What can he do through the middle sector? I see a purple mini sector with a 30.8. Almost being able to match that of Verstappen.
He's very close to the top 2 there. He could be another 119 here in that Aston Martin. It would be great to see, of course. He's now got those upgrades that Lance Stroll got last weekend. Let's hope that he puts them to use. He had a terrible start to this session in terms of the car needing lots of work, but they seem to have got it right now as he approaches that final corner and he'll cross the line. Where does he move in the charts?
14th.
Only 14th. He really messed up that last sector.
Yeah, he did. He went over the curve.
Oh, there you go. Really rode the curve.
And then he completely abandoned that lap. Yeah, understandable, but we hope to see him move up.
I think he was definitely going to get a 119 there. He just really rode the curve. Then you could see the whole car basically just pretty much became unsettled, and he couldn't even do anything about it. The car just had to make its way over the bollard, of course. So unfortunate for Alonso. He was going to put in a really quick lap there in that Aston Martin, but unable to do so.
Not a raccoon going on to say that only if Charles could borrow some of Carlos's luck this season. Charles Leclerc has been really unlucky throughout the season. Hopefully, after this incident for Fernando Alonso, he hasn't damaged his floor at all there. Watching Frederick Vesti trying to warm his tyres up in the pit lane and almost getting well, he did get sideways, but almost getting into the wall. Lando Norris coming around the same path as Fernando Alonso, going and riding over that curb through turn 13.
Yeah, so turn 13, I think, might well become a bit of a corner that catches people out this race weekend. We've already seen a few drivers ride at Alonso, followed by Norris, literally the following lap there. Just riding a bit too much because, of course, the curb does get raised a little bit more. The car, of course, exceptionally low on the track as well. So tyres on either side of it could result in exactly that. The car just becomes very unsettled. The floor just makes contact with the car, and the car is then just freewheeling, basically, through that sector there. So I think we're going to see a lot of that during qualifying tomorrow as well, because everybody's going to be pushing the cars to the limits. And that could be very interesting right at the end of sessions if, like, somebody's on a very quick lap, for example, like Max Verstappen. If he's putting in purple sectors, he's about to take first place, and then boom, turn 13, really not too far away from the end of the track, suddenly goes over it, and that ruins his whole lap. So yeah, yes, that's certainly something to watch for the remaining of this weekend.
It could be very interesting, as well as we're expecting the wind to pick up throughout the remainder of this weekend. There is a hurricane in Southern and Northern America, if I'm remembering correctly. It isn't going to affect the race running, at least, which is quite fortunate, but we're watching Oliver Behrman going a little bit slowly here. I think he's fine, possibly just getting ready for his next push lap, but I think that wind could also become a factor in qualifying as well as the race on Sunday.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So we could see all these various things coming in. So all of these rookie drivers, what have you made them so far, Reece?
I think they've all had a relatively good session. Hadjar is the fastest right now of all of those rookies. Vesti, I would have expected him to do a little bit better in that Mercedes. Currently quite far down on Behrman, who's done a lap on a set of hards. Just watching what Hamilton's done out on circuit. He's down in 11th. Nothing necessarily phenomenal for Hamilton. But yeah, so Hadjar doing Behrman and Vesti, and then Porcher down there in 20th. So those 5 rookies have not necessarily done terribly out on circuit, but I think Oliver Behrman should be able to do a little bit better on a set of softs once he does get sent out.
Yeah, so Behrman's on a set of softs. He's currently setting a time right now. So let's see what he can do. 28.2. That's exceptionally close to Max Verstappen's time in Sector 1 there. So what can he do in Sector 2? It's quite slow in Sector 2. I think he messes up.
Through turn 9.
Yeah, I think he messes up in Sector 2, unfortunately. And Sector 3 is not going well so far.
A bit of a slide through there. Car's looking a little bit worse for wear on the rear wing. Might need a touch more of downforce there, but it is a really high downforce wing already on that car. It just shows you how the altitude really does.
I think he gives up on that lap. I think he definitely gives up on that lap. Yeah, he gave up on the lap, unfortunately. That's why he's got such a slow time there. He was looking on track for 120s, low 120s, possibly even the 119s there from Behrman in that Haas, but he had to give up on the lap, and I think he's starting another hot lap now. No, DRS is not opening, so he's just going to do a few test runs here with just about 5.5 minutes left of this session.
Verstappen currently coming around the final corner of the circuit. Is he going to go around on another race run, or could he be setting another hot lap? I think he's currently on a set of mediums, if I'm not mistaken. Just watching a replay here from Behrman, where he did lose all that time. Coming through, I think that is the S's before the stadium section. Yes, that is. As we're watching Hamilton being Norris being held up by, is this Sergio Perez or Max Verstappen there? I can't see just
I think it's Max Verstappen.
That's Sergio Perez. Is it? No, it might be Verstappen.
Oh my word. More like
they do get very close as that car does go off circuit. The Red Bull. Who is it? I can't really. It's Perez.
It's Perez. It is Perez.
He goes completely off circuit there, and then gets very much in the way of Lando Norris, almost coming back onto the track on the apex there.
Yeah, so not great driving from the home race driver there, Sergio Perez. Really ruining Lando Norris's lap as well as just almost going into it.
I quite enjoy Ashke's comment there, saying it's 1 a.m. here in India. Formula 1 has messed up my sleep schedule already, and being a Ferrari fan, I don't even get anything out of it. Sorry to hear, but glad to hear that you are joining us here for our Formula 1 coverage. 5 minutes left of the session. Do be sure to stick around. We will take you into a review session afterwards, and then, of course, into the next Formula 1 practice session for our build-up ahead of that.
Yeah, it's exactly that. So, guys, we're going to be doing live reviews for every session this weekend. And, of course, we'll always be live for each session as well. So don't go anywhere at the end of the session. We'll go straight to a review of the session. You can let us know your thoughts there. As we're looking at Yuki Tsunoda, of course, watching on as his seat is currently occupied by Jack Doohan. But, yeah, so we'll join you, of course, for a live review. You guys can let us know your thoughts of the session there. And then we'll go straight into pre-practice 2 stream, where we build up into that. And you can also catch some of Reece's highlights from the week, I suppose.
Yes, news from the week, the preview for the Mexican Grand Prix, the track guide, as well as a helmet review.
As well as our race.
Yes,
of course, every week. Now, this is also something I also want to speak to everybody whilst we have you all with here. We do race every race weekend. So every single time we're in the race week of whatever Grand Prix it is, we do go and race that circuit in the F1 game.
We can't do Las Vegas, unfortunately.
No,
we have F1 22.
So we'll do something else. But if you guys have the game, be sure to go and join our Discord. The link is in the description. Go join our Discord, and we'll be giving some information about that. And maybe you guys can come and join us and fill up a few spots in our races. So then every live stream, you'll see the build-ups. We go and put in our race streams, of course. You'll see yourself driving there on the channel. So that'd be very, very fun. If you guys do go and play it, go and let us know in the comments, as well as go and join us.
Isn't in the channel, but I will drop that for you guys in the comments shortly. Let me quickly go find that from one of our older videos.
Well, if you go into the channel, I'm sure you'll go find a link on the channel itself. There'll be links, of course, with regards to all of the different social medias we have. So just go to the channel homepage and you will find it there. But Reece will try and find an easier thing. As we're heading into the last 2 minutes and 40 seconds here, and just seeing a few drivers making their way out. Hulkenberg has improved in Sector 1 and in Sector 2. Could he move into the 120s here? No, not able to. He lost time in Sector 3, I believe. So everybody pretty much finishing up their times here. Everybody's finishing the session on softs. Very good to see that. Looking at a couple of comments here, Sankora saying, I can relate to that in terms of Ferrari not getting anything out of it as a Ferrari fan. TC saying, all my optimism for Mercedes' new floor has evaporated. Look at Lewis's time log. Yes, but Mercedes are, I think, just doing race runs. They're one of the few teams that have not really done any soft tire runs here. So that's to be expected. Nico Hulkenberg getting held up quite badly by the Aston Martin there, and then also running wide in that baseball section. So unfortunately losing it quite there. That's why he lost his time. I was wondering, because he did very well in Sector 1 and Sector 2, but Sector 3 was terrible, and he went very wide in that baseball stadium section. So going to Chris's comment saying, I know that being a Ferrari fan can be depressing, but they still might not be the best, but they are still good. Yes, well, you know, they should be better, though, I think is the problem.
Well, I think that's what we're hoping for, but they do deliver a car, but when they deliver the car, they don't have the strategists. When they have the strategists, they don't have the car. It's quite frustrating, unfortunately. I'm going to drop that link for our Discord server down there in the in the chat now. I finally found it.
So go join.
I do send that.
Go join, and maybe you guys can come and race with us. That'd be great to have you guys there. We won't be listening to you, but you can certainly participate. But please race nicely. That's all I ask. Don't be the Ryans of the world. Yes. So we're right into the last minute of this session here. And yeah, guys, let us know in the comments what you thought of it. Are you surprised by any of the time? Albon's right up there in second. He's done very well today.
That's certainly a big surprise for me. I was expecting them to be relatively fast around the circuit, but to be up in P2 behind Max Verstappen by 0.095, that is phenomenal. And I think he's really pushing for a more competitive race seat.
Yeah, so really pushing. There is Alex Albon. I'm sure he will get it in the next couple of seasons.
Out there by traffic, unfortunately, on his final lap run. Disappointing there, but he was on a long run on a set of hards, as he has now completely backed off.
Yeah, well, has he?
Yes. Look at his throttle application. Very, very soft. Yeah. He's backed off. You would have expected him to be on full throttle through these sectors. Yeah, he has backed off now, as I would expect him to just go round on another slow lap, and then he will go for a practice start.
Not that slow. He didn't back up by too much. 2.7 seconds slower is more or less what's expected on these hard tires. So, yeah, a little bit slower than he had already done on hard tires, but maybe only backing off ever so slightly. So, heading towards the end of the session. The session is now technically officially over. So, everybody crossing the line now will be finishing their laps up. Lando Norris doing one more lap. I think he's pretty much going to be one of our last drivers across the line. Looking at the rest, we'll see Ollie Berman, Leclerc, is that Perez, Vesti, and I think Piastri is the last one that might have made it over in time. Everybody else is finished. So very, very disappointing for Porsche, of course, or Porsche, or however you want to say it,
Porsche,
who did not put in any time today after lots of issues with that Alfa Romeo.
Yes, we heard it was a majority of brake issues that were the cause of him not getting out on track and putting in a competitive time. Very disappointing, but unfortunately, that is how it works sometimes in Formula One. We'd certainly hope to see him in the car again very soon. He's currently leading the Formula 2 Championship. We'd expect him to get into a Formula 1 seat in the future. But unfortunately, we're just going to have to watch his career from the sidelines for now, as he's not going to be in a Formula 1 seat anytime soon, as it's quite difficult after this run. He'll only get another run, I think, next year.
Yeah, so the session is over. Nobody is going quicker out on track. So that is pretty much the end of the session, everybody. We're going into a live review right now. And thank you so much for joining us. Do not go anywhere. Let's go and chat about that session right now. But from me and Reece, of course, you've joined us. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Again, don't go anywhere. We're going to see you in the next one. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll see you there now.